Bludhaven's Darling by Catalina, a Batman all-media types fanfic, rated for teen-up audiences, with additional tags for sex work, original sex worker character, prostitution, physical abuse, the sex workers don't get treated nicely sometimes, drunkenness, a drunk guy hits on one of the sex workers, canon typical violence, threats of violence, swearing, implied sexual content, implied/referenced sex. The sex workers talk about sex, obviously, and having clients, but we never see it, and they never have sex with any of the Bat fam members. Please note that I'm not very well educated about sex work, so let me know if anything comes off bad. Dick Grayson is Nightwing. Later they call him Darling, so he's referred to as Darling a lot in this fic. Dick Grayson is a ray of sunshine. He just wants to help, even though they don't believe him at first. Discrimination against sex workers, objectification, some people don't treat the sex workers like they're real people, sexual jokes, flirting, but just for fun and nothing serious. Everything between the Bat fam members and the working girls is Genfic, no romance, no sex, involving the Bat fam. Dick Grayson is bad at self-care. The working girls aren't helpless, by the way, and the Bat fam respect them. Dick just wants to be helpful. Bisexual Dick Grayson. Implied/referenced drug use. Non-consensual drug use. Kidnapping. Barbara Gordon is Oracle. Jason Todd is Red Hood. Tim Drake is Red Robin. Damian Wayne is Robin. Cuddle Pollen. Animal lover Damian Wayne. Threatening people is how he shows he cares for you. Hurt comfort. Fluff. Mind control. Cuddling and snuggling. Low-key more fluff than you think. Jason Todd has the all blades. Hand-waving magic stuff for the sake of plot. Poison. Damian gives one of the girls some poison for self-defense. Arson. Dick lights some stuff on fire while mind-controlled. But no one gets hurt. Summary. The story behind these lines from There's a Bird in the Alleyway. Quote, "The working girls who saved your life said you've done some stuff to help them out. Your gentlemanly ways are impressing them. I don't know if punching a creep in the face counts as being gentlemanly." End quote. Or, Nightwing accidentally earns the trust of Bludhaven's working girls by being polite and smiley. Chapter 1. Nightwing helps the working girls. It's not uncommon to deal with creeps in this line of work. Brier is doing what she can to support herself in this shitty city, but surviving Bludhaven is better than what she left behind. She can deal with horrible customers if it means she gets her money in the end. She still needs a few $100 to cover this month's rent. She can handle weird requests, slurred insults, or even people being a little rough. But she's become adept at discerning those who are likely to be violent. Only they don't always take nicely to being told no. The bastard snaps at her, reeking of alcohol, and swings wildly, catching her in the jaw with his fist. She staggers a little, caught off guard, but he advances on her in a fit of rage, trapping her against the wall. She ducks down, hoping to protect her head and the more sensitive parts of her torso, and the douchebag takes it as a sign to start kicking. She curls up on the ground, hoping that staying still will eventually make him lose interest, and resigns herself to mentally calculating how much money she's going to lose on having to buy makeup to cover all of her bruises. And to think, this guy wasn't even going to pay her after all the trouble he's caused. Suddenly, the guy's being pulled off her, and she looks up in time to see him staggering back with a slurred exclamation, and be punched in the face. He falls to the ground like a pile of bricks, knocked out cold. She turns to look at her savior, and is surprised to see Nightwing standing there, haloed by the flickering streetlight, like some sort of avenging angel. He scowls down at the unconscious drunk, nudging him a little to be sure he's out before turning to look at her, schooling his face into something calm and reassuring. He reaches a hand down towards her, and she allows him to help her up to her feet. "It's a bit of a silly question," he says with a smile, as she brushes off some of the dirt and general grime. "But are you okay?" He seems genuinely concerned, like he feels bad he wasn't there earlier. She'd be touched, except for the fact that she knows no one cares for people like her. "I'll be fine," she reassures carelessly, not sure why he's still hanging around. He frowns a little, bangs falling into his face as he shifts. "I have some first aid supplies, if you need them." Nothing I haven't dealt with before. His features darken a little. Any self-respecting man shouldn't get off on hurting someone else, he says, glancing at the unconscious man again, but she doesn't think it was meant for her to hear. She isn't sure why he hasn't disappeared back into the shadows yet. She's heard of Nightwing, of course. You don't get to stay in Bludhaven very long without knowing who he is. But certainly, he has other things to do. A vigilante like him is on par with Gotham's Batman. He should be fighting supervillains and busting drug deals, not stopping petty crimes. Unless... oh, that must be it. She looks down at her clothes, hoping they're clean enough for her to still be appealing. If you wanted my thanks, I can give you a free session, she offers, glancing back at where he had been before, only to find he's not there. Instead, he's kneeling by the unconscious man's side, flipping casually through his wallet. His head whips up from what he's doing, turning to look at her, stunned. She can tell by his shocked realization and the slight embarrassed blush that works its way across his cheeks that he wasn't expecting the offer. Oh, he stutters, feeling wrong-footed. I was just... He holds up the man's wallet by way of explanation. She cuts him off with a laugh. I won't be offended if you say no, she says, amusement filling her voice. It was funny to see someone who was supposed to be charismatic and flirty all flustered over something as simple as a quickie in an alleyway. I just don't know why else you'd stick around is all. He pulls what he was looking for out of the wallet and tucks it back into the man's pocket, before walking over to her and handing it over. I figured he didn't pay you, he explains, as if that justifies the large amount of money she held in her hands. It's not like he'll need it. He shrugs carelessly. There's a moment of silence, where she's just staring at the bills in her hand, and it makes him nervous. Is that enough? It's all he had in his wallet, he explains, as if trying to give an excuse. She grins up at him, tucking the money away. It's plenty. Thanks for the help. He nods, seeming relieved. Good, well, I'll get out of your hair and get this guy dropped off at the police station. I can't imagine a vigilante hanging around is good for business. Maybe not, she agrees noncommittally, and watches as he picks the guy up and swings away. She leans against the wall, watching the direction he disappears in contemplatively. She'll have to keep an ear to the ground about Nightwing to learn more about him and his motives. A working girl like her can never be too trusting, but it would be nice to have someone in her corner, if she needed it. For now, she'll be cautiously optimistic. Bludhaven is freezing in the winter. Luna knows this. She is intimately aware of that fact, seeing as she's trying to leech as much warmth as she can from the alleyway's brick wall, while still appearing unbothered enough to attract customers. Right now, she'd kill to have a client, if just for the body heat alone. But no one else is stupid enough to be out on a night like this. No one except Nightwing. He drops down in front of her in the full light of the street lamp, probably in an attempt to not scare her. Still, she can't help her surprise, as he's the first person she's seen in over an hour. He smiles at her, polite and friendly, but doesn't get within touching range. She kind of wishes he would. He's not even shivering, so that suit of his must be warm. Slow night? He asks, congenially. Are you here to quicken it up? She flirts, trying to keep her teeth from clattering. He laughs, but it's pleased and charming, not dismissive and disgusted like she thought it might be. Sure, Brier had said he wasn't interested in her, but sometimes that means people find their particular profession to be repulsive. It's a little cold for that, don't you think? He asks, and the sound of his voice is almost enough to make her melt. There's always someone, even on nights like this. Are you heading home soon? He asks, his cheery voice taking on a concerned tone, even as he tries to hide it. I'll probably be out for another few hours. She tries to say it casually, like it wasn't that big of a deal, but it obviously doesn't work, because she watches his mouth twist into a frown. How much will it take you to go home? He asks, catching her off guard with his direct questioning. What? You're planning on staying out here to get another client, assumedly because you need the money. Otherwise you would have gone home, like everyone else. And seeing as your fingers are starting to turn blue, I figure it must be really important. So, how much? $800. He stares at her consideringly for a moment, and then nods, the blinding, cheerful smile back on his face. "I'll be back," he promises, and she's polite enough to keep her snort of laughter to herself until after he leaves. Yeah, right. She mostly gave him such a high number just to get him off her back. He may be nice, but she doesn't need him telling her how to do her job. If she's lucky, that would keep him away from her for the rest of the night. Sure, she knows that being out at night is a terrible idea. It's literally snowing, for crying out loud. But she wasn't lying either when she said that there's usually someone who will be looking for her services, even on a night like this. They're just fewer and further between than on regular nights. And she's obviously not here for her health. But she has her reasons. Winter months tend to be slower in the general sense, and she's fallen behind on a few of her bills, so any extra money she gets will help. She settles back into her spot, leaning against the brick wall, thinking warm thoughts and manifesting a customer. Only when she spots a figure 20 minutes later, it's not a customer. It's Nightwing again. She resists the urge to groan, and steps towards him to yell at him to leave her alone, but he speaks up before she gets the chance to open her mouth. $800, as requested, he says cheerfully, holding out the money for her to take. She grabs it from him, in something like awe, surprise building in her chest as she counts the bills and confirms that she is holding $800 in her hands. She glances up at him, stunned, and he holds out what appears to be a wool dress coat for her to take as well. "I also bought this, because you don't look like you had a coat with you. Will you get out of the cold now?" he asks, sounding nervous, like he'd really like her to, but doesn't want to force her hand. She's almost certain that if she asked him to get her a cup of hot coffee, he'd come back with an entire Starbucks. Brier had mentioned that he seemed like he genuinely cared about her well-being, but she didn't mention that he was fucking insane. "Yeah, I'll go home," she confirms, unable to keep the threads of disbelief from lining her voice. He steps closer, draping the coat around her shoulders, seeing as she makes no move to take it from him as well. "Where did this come from?" she asks, as she slides her arms through the sleeves, immediately feeling much warmer. He grinned at her, like sharing a secret. No one will miss it. She isn't entirely sure what that means, but as long as no one is going to come hunt her down for it back, she isn't going to pry. "Well, thank you," she says. She feels a little bad for thinking so harshly of him earlier. "Want me to walk you home?" he offers, his tone not indicating a preference either way. She just blinks at him. Maybe chivalry isn't dead, but instead, every scrap of it in the world got trapped in Nightwing's soul. "I'm a big girl," she teases. "I can make the walk myself." "Fair enough," he concedes, taking a step back. "Stay warm." She buttons the coat, tucking the money away, and when she looks back up to wish him the same, he's already gone. This doesn't look like a good place to sleep. Mira startles as a voice pulls her out of her thoughts. She's huddled behind a dumpster, the large metal container blocking her view from the street, with a blanket pulled over her legs. She glances up to see Nightwing, who sits down on the dirty ground next to her, seemingly uncaring of the filth that is leaking out from the dumpster. Mira is surprised to see him. She's heard rumors about him from the other working girls over the past few months. Stories of how he helps them out, seems to care about them, tries to prevent unnecessary violence, and will drag away unruly patrons if they ask. She just never thought she'd meet him. Despite everything she's heard, she has trouble believing it. Not when it seems too good to be true. "I can give you some money for a hotel for a few nights," he continues, when she just stares at him warily. "That's got to be better than this." "They won't take me," she explains. It's not like she's camping out here because she likes it. He tilts his head a little, like a confused puppy. "What do you mean?" He seems like he genuinely doesn't understand the problem. "The local hotels won't let us in. They don't want their beds to be used for our services." "But you're not working. You're just going to be sleeping." "They don't seem to care," she shrugs. It's not like she hasn't tried. He leans back, frowning a little, and seems to think. "Well, I understand if you don't want to, because you've never met me before, but you could stay in one of my places if you want," he offers. "And I don't want anything from you. Not like a free session or anything," he preempts. seeming to understand that that's what she was going to offer next. "I'd just feel better if you were somewhere safer." He pauses, glancing at the dumpster and general filth on the ground. "And cleaner. What is one of your places?" she questions. She needs to know the details before she commits to anything. "I have a couple of safe houses around the city, in case I'm injured or just need a place to rest that's closer than my main place. I don't really use the one that's closest to us, so it's not very well stocked, but it should at least have a bed and a change of clothes. I won't stay with you, and you can lock the doors and windows and get clean and some rest, if you'd like." That sounds nice. That sounds really nice. But it also sounds suspicious. She doesn't care if Brier says he doesn't want their bodies, or Luna says he's like a knight in shining blue and black Kevlar, or Frost says that he treated her wounds, or Autumn says that he locked her abusive pimp in jail. There's no way he doesn't have an ulterior motive. No one just helps people out like them, not just for the sake of helping. She isn't sure why, or what kind of long con he has planned to get them all thoroughly entrenched in his debt, but she debates her options and finds she doesn't have much of a choice. Even if he is a creep, she'll be safer under a roof somewhere, and she's desperate for a shower right now. Maybe she can even find something there to defend herself with, if he turns out to be trouble. She isn't sure how well she'd hold up against a trained vigilante, but she's had to defend herself plenty of times, and knows how to fight dirty. "Fine," she concedes, "but don't think I won't hurt you if you do anything strange." "If I do anything that makes you uncomfortable, you are more than welcome to." He agrees easily. "Do you have anything you want to bring with you?" he asks, standing to his feet and being sure to give her space. She grabs her meager belongings and follows him out of the alley. "Here it is," he says grandly, pushing the door open and letting her follow him inside. The place is sparse and unkempt, but the light turns on when he flicks the switch, and the sink in the small kitchenette has water. "It's not much, but you're welcome to stay here as long as you'd like." He grins at her, handing over the key. Someone might as well get some use out of it. "Feel free to lock the door, or barricade the windows, or do whatever you want with it. You have the keys now, and I'll have to knock the next time I come over." He glances through the cabinets, finding nothing but cobwebs in the pantry. "I'll bring over some food, then, too," he says, though he seems to be talking to himself. "You gave me the only key?" she asks, skeptically. "Sure," he agrees readily. "I was the only person who knew about this place, so why would I need an extra key?" She stares at him, trying to decide if he's kind or really stupid. "And you're going to let me have it? Just like that?" "Like I said, it's not like I was using it. I own the place, so it's not like there's rent to pay, and I'll stop by with some groceries in a few days. But other than that, do what you like. The money for the hotel was only a temporary solution anyway. You don't have to, of course," he says, like he's nervous about upsetting her by giving her a free place to live. "I don't want to make you feel like you're trapped or that you owe me something or anything. I'll just sleep better at night knowing you're not on the streets. I'll stay, at least for a few nights, but no promises," she cautioned, and he lit up anyway. "That's great. Let me know if you have any problems. Otherwise, let me get out of your hair for now. Have a good night." He cheers and locks the door, pulling it shut behind him. Mira darts forward, locking the deadbolt as well, and waiting for his footsteps to fade. She then checks to see if all the windows are locked and shuts the blinds. She tentatively investigates the rest of the small place, finding a bedroom, a bathroom, and a few mostly empty closets. She looks through the living room and kitchen area, snagging a knife from one of the drawers before heading back towards the bathroom. She tests the shower, relieved to find it working with warm water, and digs up a towel from one of the closets. She also finds a few pairs of clothes and picks out a smaller set that seems like they would be comfortable. She brings it all back to the bathroom, setting down her items on the counter, keeping the knife close by, and locking the bathroom door. She will shower quickly, and has a knife to defend herself if anyone tries to break in. She scrubs the grime away. She dresses in the slightly oversized clothing, relocating to the bedroom. She's too nervous to sleep, sitting on the bed with her back against the headboard, knife at her side as her heart pounds, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It never does. Over the next few weeks, she starts to adjust. Nightwing brings her food a few days after, seeming pleased that she was continuing to use the space. Mira started inviting other girls over, at first to watch her back while she rested, and then just so they had a place to go. Nightwing seemed delighted at the additional people, making sure to learn their names and add their preferences to the food he brought, buying more and more. Soon, it was filled with life, gaining decorations and becoming homey. 2 months after first introducing her to the place, Mira dubs him Darling as a sign of trust and an act of discretion. It wasn't exactly smart for them all to go around talking about being involved with Nightwing, after all. That was a good way of getting targeted by trouble. Word spreads about Darling's place, and it doesn't take long for there to be 2 or 3 girls there most nights, now able to sleep on a plush couch and large bed. It became a safe place for her fellow working girls, and Mira is glad to help out where she can. She is more glad that she took a chance to trust him that first time, all those months ago, and she does her best to reassure the others about Darling's genuine intent to help. "Darling!" Brier calls excitedly. It's always nice when he comes to visit them when they're at work. Sometimes he brings food and drinks, or other things to take back to their place, and other times he just brings good company and local gossip. He always tries to check in on all of them, at least once every few weeks, not including the time he stops by their place. He has a keen sense for when they're busy and never shows up when they have clients, but they always appreciate him livening up their slow times. Today, he looks worried. "You've got to get away from here," he says as he lands in front of them. "The warehouse across the street is rigged to blow up. You need to hurry." Brier turns to Ember, who looks over at Darling from where she's tending to Luna. "Luna is injured?" Ember explains. "We'll never make it." "I'll take her," Darling assures. "You two, get away from here, as fast as you can." Brier scoops her things up and grabs Ember's hand, tugging her away from Luna. "We've gotta go," she urges. "We can trust him," she assures, as she starts pulling her down the street, away from the warehouse. Ember is newer, and is still adjusting to their undying trust of Darling. And while Brier understands the hesitation, there's no time for that right now. Darling turns to Luna as soon as the others disappear around the corner. "Where are you hurt?" "Just my ribs. I think they're probably just bruised. Some asshole thought it would be fun to kick her while she was down. Literally. But Darling doesn't need to know that. She can fight her own battles, and considering the asshole took a pair of high heels to the face, she'll say she won. I'm gonna use my grapple to get us out of here. It's faster than trying to run. Is that okay with you?" She's never used a grappling hook before, and has only really seen Darling throw himself around with one. But if it means getting to live to see another day, then fuck it. Time for her first ride. "That's fine, Darling. Let's get out of here." He helps her stand, and she wraps her arms around his neck, as he wraps an arm around her waist, the other shooting the grapple into the air. It's a weird sensation, the rising and falling between buildings, almost like being on a roller coaster, and sooner than she expects, they stop. The ground shakes as the explosion rips through the air, and even though they are a safe way away, Luna can see the burst of flames in the distance. Just watching it, she can imagine the heat rolling off of it, and feels the phantom tingling of it against her skin. She shivers involuntarily at the thought. "That looks like it was bad." Darling frowns a little, glancing over at the plumes of smoke. "It was. I'm glad I got to you in time." He turns back to her. "How are you feeling? Can you breathe okay? No nausea or anything?" "I'm fine," she reassures. "Not bad for my first grapple ride, huh?" she says, somewhat teasing, hoping to drain some of the tension from him. "You did great. No screaming in fear or anything." He grins. She shrugs. "I knew you wouldn't drop me," she says sincerely, and he seems touched at her faith in him, glancing back at the desolate warehouse like he thinks it's unfounded. "That won't do. Be careful now. The others are going to be jealous if they find out you gave me a ride. Soon we're all going to be asking you to give us a session." That was enough to make him laugh, not missing the double entendre. There's no harm in flirting with someone when you both know it's in good fun. "I hope not," he says at her, more genuine this time. "I wouldn't want to make anyone jealous." "There you guys are!" Brier's voice interrupts them, and they turn to see her and Ember running towards them. "Are you both okay?" Darling questions, anxious concern immediately seeping back into his voice. "We're fine, Darling," Brier reassures. "Got all our limbs and everything. She's used to his somewhat overwhelming care and concern for them at this point, and just rolls her eyes. Ember, however, seems touched by his inquiry. Luna is amused. Give it a few months, and she'll find it as unnecessary as they do. Good, good, Darling says, trailing off. I'm glad I was able to get you all away in time. I swear, some of these gangs have no sympathy for the innocent people who might get caught in the crossfire. He runs a hand through his hair, seeming stressed. Sounds like you've been busy, Luna prompts. Almost too busy. Brier agrees, squinting at Darling in consideration, trying to see if he's been taking care of himself. For someone so insistent on their well-being, he's an awful hypocrite. He doesn't seem to hear what they're saying, too busy being lost in thought. You know, he starts with a slightly self-deprecating tone that leaves Luna knowing she isn't going to like this. Red Hood is doing a lot of work in Crime Alley in Gotham. He has a whole team of people who keep an eye out for the working girls there. You would be in much better hands if you— We aren't going anywhere, Luna cuts in, jabbing a finger in his chest, which seems to grab his attention. If you think that after all this time you can start bossing us around, then you've got another thing coming. I didn't mean it like that, he backpedals. I don't know what kind of nonsense is going through your head, Brier agrees. But we aren't leaving you, or Bludhaven. Right, of course. He agrees readily. I wasn't trying to kick you out. I'm just trying to make sure you're safe, and you kept us safe tonight, Luna says, staring him right in the lenses of his mask, hoping direct eye contact would drive the point home. Why would we go anywhere else? I think this calls for a night in. Ember, if you will. Ember seems to have warmed up to Darling, whether it be because of him protecting them tonight, carrying Luna to safety, or their current conversation, Brier isn't sure. Whatever the reason, Ember seems to catch on to their intentions, easily throwing him over her shoulders and hooking an arm around his legs. He lets out a small yelp at the sudden movement, but stills as Ember balances his weight evenly on both her shoulders, draping him across her like a weird scarf. This is uncalled for. He pouts minutely, but also very impressive. Some people like to be thrown around, Brier explains easily. Ember's the girl for the job. I find working out to be good stress relief, Ember explains. And this job has a lot of stress. Darling laughs a little. I imagine it does. Well then, he seems resigned to his fate, not making any move to escape, even though Luna is sure he could if he wanted. Where are you taking me, my cruel, cruel captors? They laugh at his dramatics. Girls' night in. You get to be an honorary girl. If for nothing else, then that you pay for our streaming services, Brier teases. I need to redo my nails, Luna agrees, and Ember is still learning a new makeup look. Brier has been giving weekly updates about her on-again, off-again situationship, Ember says mischievously. Brier groans at the mention, which makes Ember think she has more news. Boy talk! Darling exclaims, looking delighted. I can join in with that. And, well, if you have a nice blue nail polish, I suppose I can spare a few hours. I'll have to let the others know I'm being maliciously held captive and not to bother me. Luna vaguely knows that Darling runs in the same circles as the Bats, and he mentioned Red Hood earlier, but she isn't sure how far his web of vigilante relations goes. She isn't sure she wants to find out. God forbid anything ever happened to Darling. Not only are all of them going to revolt, but there will be bats raining down on Bludhaven. She isn't sure the city would survive. Sounds like a plan to me, Brier says. Back to Darling's place. We'll keep a slow pace for Luna's ribs and Ember's extra weight. Darling glances at Luna. You have painkillers at the safe house, right? I can give you some more. We have plenty, Luna reassures. You'll be the first to know when we run out. Now, let's get going. There are some leftovers in the fridge that have my name on them. Dick didn't realize how much the knowledge of his helping the working girls in Bludhaven had spread until one of them pulled him aside in Gotham. Nightwing! Someone calls out to him. Nightwing! Darling! It takes until she calls him Darling for him to realize it's not coming from his comm. Only a specific set of people call him that. He turns to see someone trying to get his attention from a nearby alleyway, and approaches her carefully. I'm glad I saw you passing by, the girl says, sounding relieved. I need your help. My friend, Angel, got abducted from her usual spot a few nights ago, and I haven't heard from her since. I hear rumors that there's a new drug going around the streets, and they need test subjects. But I can't let them do that to my friend. You've got to help me," she insisted. Dick has a sneaking suspicion he knows the exact group she's talking about. They've been following some groups who have been trying to recreate Scarecrow's fear toxin to sell it, while he's locked up in Arkham. That's part of why Dick is here in Gotham in the first place. He didn't know they were going to be experimenting on people, though. The thought makes his blood boil. "Do you have any good information you can give me?" The girl shakes her head. "That's all I know." "That's okay," he reassures. "Do you have a safe place you can go? You probably shouldn't be out on the streets while people are being taken." "Yeah, we have an apartment together. Can you bring her back there if you find her?" she asks, giving him an address. "Of course. Now stay safe, alright?" She leaves, heading back towards what Dick hopes is her apartment. And while she seems relieved, he can tell she's still anxious. Time to get to work. He follows his current intel to an abandoned factory near the docks and puts on his rebreather, just to be sure. His comm is active, but currently silenced. If all goes well, he'll have some good news for Oracle in just a few hours. To his luck, and slight dismay, he's right. He watches from his spot in the rafters as a group bustles around their makeshift machine, bubbling with some sort of nasty-looking concoction. It appears to be synthesized and then divided into little vials, which are being packed away, presumably to be sold later. He doesn't see anyone who appears to be there against their will, which means they must be keeping her somewhere else. He drops down to the ground, opting for stealth, and takes out a small handful of guards before being noticed. "It's the bats!" someone yells, and all attention is on him. He throws down a smoke bomb, creating panic and confusion, hoping that they'll think there's more than just him. Maybe it's stupid for him to try and take them all down by himself instead of waiting for backup, but he has a victim to find, and he's not taking any chances. The longer he waits, the higher the chance there is that this unknown concoction gets tested on someone, and unknown formulas can be dangerous, especially when the people making them don't know what they're doing. He takes down the last few of the guys as the smoke clears, zip-tying their hands and removing all of their weapons. Just because everyone here is down for the count doesn't mean he's won. He wouldn't be surprised if more people were roaming the building. "Oh," he says quietly into his comm. "I've got a present for you." He can hear the slight grin in her voice as she replies. "Is that so? What is it?" "I took down the group trying to synthesize some more fear toxin out by the docks. They're all tied up and knocked out for now. But rumor is they took hostages. I need some backup to deal with these guys and take care of the toxin while I look for them. If I do find someone locked away back here, I don't plan to stick around." "Batman and Robin are on their way to your location," Oracle confirms. "Good luck, Boy Wonder." "Think so," he says, and flicks his comm back off again. He advances further into the warehouse, looking through the various rooms and offshoots. He starts to get a sinking feeling in his chest as he checks more and more places to find no one, but eventually finds a hallway with 2 guards at the end. He knocks them out quickly, tying them up as well, and peeks into the small room nearby. Relief floods him as he spots a young woman, tied up in the corner. He steps closer, trying to evaluate if she's been drugged with anything, then her head whips up, and she glares at him. "Don't come any closer," she warns. "I'll fucking kill you if you lay your hands on me." She squints through the darkness, trying to keep an eye on him in the dingy light, as he steps forward, hoping that she'll recognize him. "I mean it, you fucking creep," she yells, picking up a small rock with her bound hands and throwing it at him. He dodges it, crouching down in front of her, and holding his hands up slightly to show her he doesn't have any weapons. "I'm not gonna hurt you," he tries to reassure. "I'm gonna get you out of here." "You're going to drug me," she accuses. "Why else would you be wearing that?" She makes a fair point. He takes the rebreather off and tucks it away. "Are you Angel? Your friend sent me to find you and bring you home." He lists off the address he was given. She eyes him with reluctant trust. "Why would she do that? Who are you?" she asks, still suspicious, even as she relaxes a little. Either Angel is new to the city, or Dick isn't in Gotham enough for people to be familiar with him. "I'm Nightwing." "You're from Bludhaven," Angel says, something seeming to register in her mind. I'm Darling, he confirms. You're Darling? She exclaims, torn between relief and disbelief. I'm so sorry. I've never met you before. I've heard rumors, but I've never seen you in person, so I didn't know what you looked like. Yes, please get me out of here. He laughs a little at the easy acceptance and moves closer, cutting the rope wrapped around her. She rises to her feet, stretching out her sore limbs. They didn't hurt you or inject you with anything, did they? He asks, glancing over her for any obvious signs of injury. No, they threatened to a few times. I don't think it was actually ready yet. Or maybe they were scared because I kept biting anyone who got close, she says, a mischievous glint in her eye. Dick smiles. Good. Now let's get you home. Chapter 2. The Working Girls Help Nightwing. It's been a while since Bruce has patrolled with only his oldest son. He understands that Dick has his own responsibilities in Bludhaven and that he needs the freedom to stretch his wings, but Bruce will always be glad to have his children home. They're doing a simple patrol around the city tonight. No escaped villains. No escaped villains to capture, or malicious deals to stop. He enjoys the peace of the night, stopping petty crime, and generally allowing himself to get lost in the cheerful atmosphere his son exudes. Maybe that's why he's a little caught off guard by Nightwing's quick switch in behavior when someone calls for him. Darling! A female voice calls, and Bruce notes the way that his son's posture changes at the sweet pet name. Bruce glances over to see some of Gotham's working girls lingering on a nearby street corner, and is ready to keep on moving. He's not interested in what they have to offer, but Dick swings towards them anyway. Bruce follows behind him, wondering if his son saw something he didn't, keeping his expression light and carefree even as he walks towards them with purpose. The girl waves at him, holding a white handkerchief between her fingers, the silken fabric fluttering in the wind. Bruce keeps his distance, scanning the nearby shadows for any signs of a trap. But Dick just approaches her without worry, smiling warmly and saying something to her that Bruce doesn't hear. Maybe he really did miss something. Was she hurt? He takes a small step closer, trying to squint through the poor lighting for signs of abuse, when the girl grabs hold of Dick, pressing him up against the nearby brick wall. He thinks about darting forward, but watches the way she places her hand on his chest, Dick letting his head fall back as she presses herself fully against him, burying her face in the crook of his neck. Dick rests both his hands on her hips, and one of her hands slides up to run through his hair. Bruce ducks back around the corner, giving them some privacy. That was certainly not an attack. What his son gets up to in his own time is up to him. He's a consenting adult, after all, but Bruce will be sure to remind him that it's unprofessional when out as Nightwing, and to give him a little more warning next time. That is something he doesn't want to see, or think about, ever again. A few minutes later, Dick joins him, smiling up at him like nothing out of the usual happened, hair mussed and cheeks stained with lipstick. Ready to go? Bruce stares at him in something like disbelief. I think you should probably make yourself a little more presentable first. He grunts out instead. Presentable? He trails off, seemingly in confusion, before wiping at his face and groaning at the smear of lipstick. Of all the possessive, jealous nonsense! Dick grumbles, wiping his face and running his hands through his hair, in attempts to comb it into something less disheveled. Bruce picks up the fond undertone to his complaints nonetheless. How's that? Dick asks, glancing up at him again. Better, Bruce concedes. He sighs, bracing himself for this lecture. I hope I don't have to explain why that type of behavior is unacceptable while on patrol. He begins. Dick looks at him, obviously confused. Apparently, he does have to explain. Look, I know you're an adult, and I honestly have no interest in trying to control your sex life as long as everything is consensual, but— Ew! No! Dick exclaims, shoving his hands up over his ears like a little kid and pouting up at him. Shut up, don't ever— That's not what that was. He whined disgustedly. What was it then? Bruce presses. Dick drops his hands with a sigh. Look, I kind of got a reputation back in Bludhaven as someone willing to help protect or assist the working girls there, if they run into any issue. You know, if some creep is hurting them, or they need some extra money to make rent, or need some first aid, stuff like that. And apparently people talk, and now knowledge has spread to Gotham. But also, the girls in Blood help me out if they overhear any information they think I might find useful. It's way easier for them to find out secrets about criminal goings-on than it is for me, because no one suspects them. And apparently, that idea also spread to Gotham, because Chrissy just told me that there are some rumors about an arms deal that's supposed to take place later tonight. Bruce takes a moment to process the new information. How does information gathering lead to you looking like that? He asks, somewhat skeptical. He can't see it behind the mask, but he can tell in his son's tone that he rolled his eyes. Don't act like you've never flirted to get information. Besides, it'd be suspicious for them to be all buddy-buddy with me for no reason. But if it looks like they're just with a client, no one looks twice. I bet if you hadn't seen me walk over there, you wouldn't have known it was me. Despite being in uniform. Well, if that's all it is, Bruce says, feeling reassured. Relax, B. Both sides know the other party is not actually interested. The flirting is just a bit of fun. Even if they try to play up guessing which one of them is my favorite. Especially between the girls in Gotham and Bludhaven. Both of them try to say they had me first and therefore don't want to give me back to the other, hence the slight possessiveness. He grins a little, like it's a funny joke. Bruce internally agrees that it does seem a little silly, but as long as it doesn't cause any problems in the future, he has nothing to argue against. I'm glad to see you have people looking out for you, he says instead, hiding his grin as Dick's jaw drops in disbelief. I just explained how I created a massive information-gathering network, albeit accidentally, and all you got out of that was that they look after me? Well, I can't do it when you're in Bludhaven all the time, so it's good to know someone else is doing it for me. Dick crosses his arms with a huff. Unbelievable! Cold out tonight, huh? Darling's voice startles her, but Mira is too used to his surprise visits to jump. She turns, looking deeper into the alleyway, and eyes him shivering a bit with a frown. It's not cold at all. Sure, it hasn't quite warmed up to the height of the summer's heat, but it's by no means cold enough for anyone to be shivering. If anything, the stray bands of light wind that makes it through the gaps in the buildings feels kind of nice. Kinda hot, if anything? She rebukes gently, glancing over at him with something like concern as he sits on the ground, pressing back against the wall and curling in upon himself. Really? He asks, sounding unsure, shaking a little. Are you okay? She questions, stepping closer as the worry in her chest grows. Run into any weird villains lately? I don't think so, he says, but he doesn't sound sure, like he can't really think properly. She doesn't blame him. It doesn't look comfortable. She crouches down next to him, looking over him more carefully, and spots something shimmering on the side of his neck, just peeking up over the collar of his suit. Did you get into some glitter? She asks, reaching out to wipe it off. He jerks back before she has the chance to touch him. So she pauses. He must have figured out the issue. Ivy's pollen, he explains out loud. It's nothing too serious, but just a bit of cuddle pollen. I was helping Red Robin out with it earlier, but he must not have properly decontaminated. He sighs, letting his head fall back even as he continues to shiver slightly, unable to force himself to relax. Don't get any on you, he warns gently. This cuddle pollen, she says the words like they're unfamiliar to her, doesn't require sex to fix it. No, none of Ivy's pollens ever do. Usually just any sort of touch will do, but people use it as an excuse to do all sorts of things. She frowns. She'll have to keep that in mind for the future. She reaches out, placing her hand on the other side of his face, gently cradling his cheek, and being sure to avoid any of the sparkling powder. Immediately, he relaxes, the shivering easing up until it's gone entirely. Darling goes boneless, leaning slightly into the touch. He's oddly warm, despite what the shivering has indicated, almost like he has a fever. How long will it take for it to wear off? A couple of hours? He answers, somewhat groggily. Maybe overnight? We should get you cleaned up, get that stuff off of you, and we can help you out with it. She doesn't know if more skin-to-skin contact will make it go by faster, but if Luna and Brier are home, they can test it out. Her offer seems to knock him out of the foggy haze in his mind. "You don't need to do that." He starts to protest, but he can't prevent a mournful whine from slipping out when she pulls her hand away. She can tell he realizes she's right when he ducks his head, and she puts her hand back. "I've done it before," he insists. "But you wouldn't leave Red Robin to do it by himself, right?" "Of course not," he huffs. "He's my brother." "And you're our darling. We're not leaving you to suffer unnecessarily." "Fine," he relents. "But I'm paying you, since you're heading in early, just to look after me." She rolls her eyes. She's not going to accept any payment for returning the smallest scrap of help that he's shown them, but she's not going to tell him that, or they'll be out here all night. "Fine," she parrots. "Now let's get going." Contact isn't as effective through the fabric of his suit, but it makes it easier for her to help him across the city to the safe house he gifted them, trailing after her like a pitiful lost puppy. Once they arrive, he only veers away from her long enough to shower, scrubbing the pollen from his skin and suit so as not to contaminate the rest of the place with it. Brier and Luna are home, and Mira fills them in on what's going on. Luna darts off to prep the bed for them all to sleep in, and Brier digs through all their belongings for something Darling might be able to wear. Darling's place has changed a lot since he first brought Mira to it. The bed has gotten larger as they pooled their money to buy a king-sized bed, even though it takes up most of the room. They have upgraded their furniture, getting plusher couches, more seating, and nicer kitchenware for when they cook. Sure, Darling helps out with things like providing groceries and paying the utilities, but they take pride in doing most of the renovating and upgrades for themselves. The walls may be crowded with as much storage space as they can fit, but there's also some fun art on the wall, and even one of the walls in the kitchen is painted a calming pastel pink. So while the oversized old outfits of Darling's were there on the night Mira first arrived, they were long buried under piles of their own things, to the point that Mira isn't really sure that they have them anymore. That's how Darling ends up in a bright blue pair of fuzzy pajama pants dotted with little red cherries, and a slightly small, matching blue shirt with the words "Sweet Dreams" and an ice cream sundae on the front. Mira has to admit, he looks a little silly in the bright pajama set, while still wearing his mask, but there's no way she's going to let him in their fancy bed while wearing what he fights crime in. Darling doesn't seem to care, falling into bed and pulling the covers around him, like that might be able to provide the heat he's looking for. Instead, Mira crawls in next to him, pulling the blankets away from him, and draping herself over him instead, trying to cover as much as she can. Brier and Luna also join in, and between the three of them, the pollen should be out of his system in no time. 2 hours later, Mira is jerked awake by the sound of someone jostling a window. The red numbers of the clock blink an angry 4 a.m. at her, and she glances over to see Brier and Luna looking concerned as well. They've stayed here for many months, and never had any issues. This can only spell bad news. "I'll take care of it," Mira whispers, glancing over at Darling, who is still asleep. She suspects it's an effect of the pollen, because she can't think of any other reason it wouldn't have woken him as well. "I'm coming with you," Luna says, getting up and retrieving a metal baseball bat they keep by their bed. "We'll scream if there is real trouble," Mira promises Brier. She's sure that Darling could kick any intruder's ass, even half inhibited by pollen. Brier nods seriously, making sure to keep contact with Darling, but sitting up to watch them go. Mira darts into the kitchen, grabs a knife from the block, and advances towards the window, with Luna right behind her. Darling helped them set up the defenses on the windows, so if whoever is breaking in can get through them without setting off the alarms, she'll be almost impressed. She and Luna wait, poised and ready as the figure slips through, shutting the window neatly behind them, muttering to themselves. It's then that Mira lunges, pressing the intruder back against the glass as she holds the knife to their throat, and Luna flicks on the light. "What the hell do you want?" Mira growls in the figure's face, pressing the blade harder against their throat. The figure just freezes, and as the light settles through the room, Mira spots a familiar-looking mask on the figure's face. "Wait, are you one of Darling's friends?" she asks, stepping back a little, but keeping the knife raised in case he attacks her. "Who?" he asks, sounding confused. Nightwing, she clarifies. I'm looking for him, he says, and then his voice darkens. Like they're the bad guys here. What have you done with him? Relax, we aren't going to hurt him, Luna says, and twirls the bat threateningly. But we aren't going to let you hurt him either. I'm not here to hurt him, he explains. I'm trying to check up on him. I followed his tracker here. Mira stares at his suit appraisingly, and something clicks in her mind. You're the one who got him covered in pollen in the first place, she realizes, lowering the knife. His brother, what did he call you? Red Robin? Yeah, that's me, he admits sheepishly. I knew he was with the bats, Luna said. But you didn't say they were his family. Mira shrugs. He only just said so tonight, and I'm not entirely sure he meant to. She glances back at Red Robin. Cute kid, though. Red Robin seems a little indignant at her remark, but doesn't say anything. Think we can trust him the same way as Darling? Luna asks, eyeing him a little. If he stops breaking through our windows, sure. If he's Darling's kid brother, he must not be too bad. I say we give him a chance. I say we call him stupid. Luna posits. Hey! We can't call Darling's kid brother stupid, Luna. Fine. Careless, then. How about Sunshine? Seeing as he came in through our window? I like it. Luna agrees. Sunshine groans. I'm sorry, okay? I was just trying to make sure Nightwing was alright. Come on, kid, Mira says, taking pity on him. Let's go see your brother. Just let everyone else know to use the front door and to knock before entering. She sets the knife back down in the kitchen and leads the way to the bedroom, pushing the door open slightly, the light filtering in from the other room, providing a soft golden glow. The kid's cool, Mira informs Brier, who whips her head up and glances at them nervously. He's one of Darling's younger brothers. Just wants to make sure he's alright. Brier keeps her voice quiet. He seems to be doing fine. Slept through the entire thing. But it's not like I know much about this. You think he'll be fine, kid? She asks, and Red Robin steps further into the room, moving silently across the carpet. Did he get the rest off? Yeah, he took a shower a few hours ago. He doesn't seem to be having any weird reaction. Sleepiness and slight confusion are pretty common, until they wear off. He'll probably be fine in another few hours. But if he's not back to normal by midday, let me know. He digs around through Darling's discarded suit and finds his comm, showing the girls how to use it. But I'll leave you all to get some rest. Sorry for bothering you and breaking into your apartment. He apologizes, looking genuinely sheepish. Mira smiles at him. It's fine, kid, we get it. Put the alarm back on the window before you leave, and we'll call it square. He nods, disappearing into the other room. Luna lies down once more, and Brier settles against the bed, as Mira follows Red Robin. He fixes their system, and she nudges him out of the front door, not without extending an invitation for him to stop by, if he's ever in Bludhaven again. It'd be nice to meet him under better circumstances, and when she's a little more well-rested. She trudges back to the bedroom, flicking the light off on her way, and faceplants onto the bed, exhaustion swooping over her as the adrenaline fades. It doesn't take long for her to fall asleep. When she wakes up in the morning, Darling is gone, and $200 are sitting on the nightstand. That bastard! Brier's heading home when she sees him. She diverts from her normal route, eyes catching on a nearby burning building, and moves closer to investigate. She plans to see if there's anyone nearby who needs help, and call for the police, or an ambulance, if need be. But instead, she turns the corner to find Darling standing there. Darling! She calls, feeling relieved. If he were there, everything must be under control. She frowns a little as he just stands there, just looking into the burning building and making no move to acknowledge her in return. Darling? She says again, more hesitantly this time, a feeling like dread filling her chest. Something was wrong. She finally gets close enough to touch him, and he whirls around, forcing her to step back as he shoves one of his eskrima sticks in her face. The weapon crackles with electricity. She didn't even know it could do that. For all he's been around them, he's never once turned his weapons on any of them. She takes a second, frozen in place, trying to figure out what was going on, and it's only then that she notices the strong smell, Gasoline. The transparent liquid drips off his extended hand, splattering on the sidewalk, and his other hand clenches around the still-lit lighter in his hand. What's going on? She questions. He must have had a good reason for destroying that building. Right? Why aren't you answering me? Darling has never been so cold or dismissive in the entire time they've known each other. Something was really, really wrong. He doesn't acknowledge her at all, lowering his arm and dropping both the weapon and the lighter on the ground, turning mechanically and walking away. It's stiff and robotic, entirely not like him at all. She picks up the abandoned stick, no longer sparking electricity, and chases after him. When she catches up to him again, she plants herself in his path, staring him down. "What's wrong with you?" she demands. "Leave us, girl," Darling says, and it's cold, harsh, and entirely a different voice. "I have no business with you." "Well, I have business with him," she snarls. "I don't know what the hell you are, but give him back." "I warned you." Not Darling's voice snarls, and he grabs her arm tight enough to bruise. His other hand draws up a sharp metal object, holding it to her throat. They are at a standstill for a moment, before something around him shifts, twitching a little. "Leave me alone," Darling says harshly, but in his own voice again, and he's not talking to her. "I won't hurt her, get—" His voice trembles, and he lets go of her, dropping the weapon and clutching at his head. "Get out of my head," he demands. "You insolent fool," Not Darling's voice cries, and the air crackles around them, a figure appearing in the air, floating above them. "How did you break my spell? You should have been unable to resist any of my commands." "She's my friend," Darling snarls, turning to face the poor wizard wannabe. "I won't let you hurt her." She twirls the eskrima stick in her hand, taking up a defensive stance. "And I won't let you control him." The magic user glances at them for a moment, but tilts his head with a grin. "Fine. If you're so desperate to be loyal to someone else, then so be it." He glances over at Brier. "I don't need him anymore anyway. Enjoy your new pet." He flicks his hand with a crackling laugh and disappears once more. "Darling?" she says hesitantly, worry settling over her like a wet blanket. She might not have fixed anything at all. "Yes," he says blankly, turning to face her. "What did he do to you?" "I'm ready to do as you command." Fuck, she really did mess this up. Instead of freeing him, she just took the reins for herself. Damn magic users. "Here, take your stick back," she says, disgust building in her stomach, as he does exactly what she says, as if just a puppet. He tucks both the sticks away, and then just stands there, looking at her, as if awaiting orders on what to do next. She reaches forward, grabbing his calm herself, unable to tolerate the idea of giving him any more commands. She's going to have nightmares about this, she's sure. There are so many bad things that could happen if power like this fell into the hands of the wrong people. She shudders. A burning building is hardly the worst-case scenario. "Hello?" She speaks tentatively into the small device, hoping she remembers how to properly work it. "Is anyone there?" "Who the hell is this?" a gruff voice says, tone bordering on threatening. "Why do you have Nightwing's comm?" "I'm Brier. Are you one of his friends? Or brothers?" She glances over at where Darling stands lifeless, an empty husk. Something happened to him. "You're one of the working girls he's corrupted in Bludhaven, aren't you?" he asks rhetorically, an understanding dawning over his voice. "Nice to meet you, Brier. I'm Red Hood." "Red Hood, right. He said good things about you." She sighs, feeling a little relieved. That was another one of his brothers. Right. It would be good to have someone familiar to help. "What's wrong?" Red Hood demands. "What happened to him?" "He got hit by magic, I think," Brier explains, guilt welling up inside her. "It's some kind of mind control. He doesn't seem to have any control over his actions, and..." She bites her lip nervously. "He does everything I say?" "You're controlling him?" Hood asks, stunned. "It's all my fault, I'm sorry," she starts explaining, feeling desperate for him to understand. "He just didn't want to hurt me, and the wizard guy got mad, and now he's just standing there waiting for me to tell him something to do. I don't want to, I promise. I didn't mean to. He just didn't want to hurt me. Please, I'm sorry. Whoa, calm down. He cuts in, and it's not until she stops talking that she realizes tears are running down her face. I'm not blaming you. From what I heard, you all seem like very nice ladies. I know you're not going to do anything he wouldn't want you to. He reassures, his voice taking on a gentle tone. It's gonna be okay. Now, this is going to suck, but I really need you to get him somewhere safe, okay? I'm on my way now, but it'll take me a bit to get to Bludhaven. You have that safe house, right? Yeah, she confirms, trying to pull herself together. She is not a helpless little girl. Darling trusts her, and Darling's brothers trust her with him. Everything is going to be okay. Good. Get him back there, and I'll be there soon. Okay, I can do that. She wipes away her tears, and hears the comm switch off. She turns to face Darling, an apologetic smile on her face. In case you're still in there somewhere, she says, cradling his face gently. I'm sorry, but I'm going to get us back to our place, and your brother, Red Hood, is coming to help fix this. Let's go, okay? Let's go home. He follows behind her mindlessly, and is one of the few times she's glad to come home to an empty place. Normally, the silence drives her insane, but now she's just glad no one else is going to see Darling like this. You can sit on the couch, she starts, and he's already moving across the room before she finishes. If you want. She settles on the couch next to him to wait, leaning against him in what she hopes is comforting, not daring to say anything else, just in case. When a knock finally sounds at the door, she practically throws herself off the couch, ushering Red Hood inside. He's tall, broad-chested, and muscular, and she really hopes he's not actually mad at her, because he looks like he could break her in half without breaking a sweat. Red Hood crouches down in front of where Darling sits stiff and motionless, glancing him over before looking back at her. You said he just does whatever you tell him to. She nods. Please don't ask me to demonstrate. The magic user didn't say anything about how to break it? No, she admits, wringing her hands a little with nerves. Red Hood observes his brother for a few more moments and sighs. Well, it looks like a pretty standard curse. I've an idea about how to break it, but it's a little unconventional. He glances back at her. Normally we'd get someone more qualified to come break it, but I think you and I both want this over with as soon as possible. She nods in agreement. Okay then, remember, he says, standing up, looking at her meaningfully. This is gonna look strange, but I won't hurt him, okay? Right, she confirms. When he said strange, odd, and unconventional, she thought it might be like the other magic user, appearing in a burst of lightning or his hands glowing bright colors, not summoning a large, flaming sword and shoving it in Darling's chest. She can't help the gasp that escapes her, but doesn't intervene, hoping that she didn't actually bring someone who was going to hurt Darling further. After a few seconds, however, Darling slumps with a groan, and Red Hood pulls his sword out, the flaming weapon disappearing back from whence it came. Wing? Red Hood questions. You back with us? You stabbed me with your magic weapons? Darling asks, voice tinged with dazed confusion. Brutal, but effective. It won't hurt you, but it'll hurt the evil inside of you. Which, in this case, was a curse. Neat, Darling grunts, pushing himself up into a more upright position. Never do that again. Red Hood barks out a laugh. Stay away from magic users and I won't have to. That guy was an asshole, Darling agrees, and then he tenses, like he's remembering something. Wait, Brier! He shoots up, but immediately clutches at his head with a grimace. Take it easy, Red Hood cautions. Your brain has been subjected to a lot of weird shit tonight. But she... Your friend is right here, Red Hood consoles. She's fine, just relax. Darling glances over at her, and she gives him what she's hoping is a reassuring smile. He seems relieved, leaning back against the couch, and Brier allows herself to relax as well. Everything was going to be okay. I require your assistance. Luna turns at the sound of the young voice, surprised to see a child. He appears to be injured, bleeding in a few places, and standing stiffly. She'd be more concerned if not for the bright colors of the uniform he wore. Even in Bludhaven, she knows Robin when she sees him. Nightwing says you are trustworthy. Is that true? I'd like to think so. We help him out how we can, at the very least. What can I do for you? I was separated from Nightwing while on patrol with him tonight, and taken to a secondary location. I was able to escape from the incompetent fools, but not without slight injury. They will likely be looking for me. I need somewhere to tend to my wounds while I wait for Nightwing to find me. This alleyway will suffice. There's no need to leave your post. Sure, kid. I can stand guard. Let me know if you need anything. Your aid is greatly appreciated, Robin says, moving past her to sit next to a dumpster and begin to tend to his wounds. After a few minutes, Luna hears yells from down the street, and Robin shifts, tucking himself out of sight. Those must be the assholes who kidnapped him, then. She doesn't spare the kid another glance, assuming that he'll find another exit out of the alleyway, and takes up her normal stance, as if looking for customers on a slow night. She had kind of hoped that they would look past her, but instead, the group of 3 men advanced towards her, calling out to her. You see any kids go by here? The one in the front asks, clutching a piece of pipe in his hand as an obvious impromptu weapon. She watches the way he can barely stand still in tense, coiled rage, and satisfaction crawls across her skin at the way his other wrist hangs at an odd angle, even as she keeps her face neutral. We don't service kids, and I don't pay attention to anything that doesn't give me money. She deflects. But if you're looking to have a good time, she trails off, flirtatiously. The guy looks annoyed and disgusted. Fucking useless bitch, he says, smacking her across the face and motioning for the others to follow him as he darts out into the night. What an asshole, she mutters to herself, reaching up to wipe away the blood that's starting to drip from her nose. I would have dealt with them myself if I knew they were going to be such filthy degenerates. Luna startles at Robin's voice, turning to see him emerging from behind the dumpster, a small frown on his face. I apologize, he says, holding out a clean tissue for her to take. I didn't mean for anyone else to get hurt tonight, especially in my stead, he says sincerely, looking a little upset, despite the massive difference in their injuries. I thought you would have left, escaped off across the rooftops, she says, gesturing vaguely with one hand and holding the tissue to her nose with the other. Of course not, he says, sounding a little offended. A good hero doesn't leave their partner behind. She grins at him. We're partners now? Temporarily, he concedes. I can't say I'm fond of you staying in the role much longer. You have nothing to defend yourself with. You obviously have never taken a pair of stilettos to the face, she counters cheekily. He stares at her appraisingly for a moment. I have not, he admits, but seems intrigued. Don't worry, I'm not cut out for hero work, but we'll have each other's back until your brother gets here. How's about that? That is sufficient, he agrees. She can't help the warm feeling that floods through her. What a little cutie. And so polite, too. It's like interacting with a mini darling. Same dark hair and tan skin and everything. She kind of wants to bundle him up in a bunch of blankets and hold him until the sun rises. For now, she'll take him back home. She has the perfect name for him in mind. How about you come back with me to Darling's place so you have a safe place to wait for him to pick you up? No more of this running around to avoid those weirdos on the streets. What is Darling's place? He questions cautiously. Right. Nightwing left us one of his old safe houses, and since we call him Darling as a sort of code name, we call it Darling's place, she explains. He seems satisfied with her response. Very well, then. I will follow you there. She turns to grab her things, throwing the used tissue in the nearby dumpster. It seems for now, at least, the bleeding has stopped. As she stands, she catches him limping slightly as he walks towards the street. She watches him, obviously trying to hide the injury, and knows there's no way she can let him continue like this. I'll let you choose, she begins, drawing his attention as she walks up to him. I can carry you on my back or in my arms. I do not need to be carried, he states matter-of-factly, and if she didn't see him wince in pain just a few seconds ago, she might have been convinced that he was fine. Yeah, no, she rebukes gently, crouching down. I saw you limping. Now choose, or I'm throwing you over my shoulder like a sack of potatoes. This is why you do not make a good partner, he sighs. She laughs. That's exactly why I'm a great partner. I won't let the person I'm looking after do stupid things. I bet your brother would do the same. His face scrunches, unable to refute her point. But I will be unable to protect you. he says softly, revealing his true reasoning for his hesitance. I have already failed you once tonight. Her heart breaks a little in her chest. This kid was simultaneously the cutest and saddest thing she's ever met. You've not failed me at all. You kept yourself safe, which is what your priority should be. That's all I need from you. He tuts, turning away. Now you really sound like Nightwing. He grumbles slightly. I'll take that as a compliment. Now, how about this? If you get on my back, you can cover my 6, and probably have easier access to your weapons. Sound like a plan? If I must. He yields, climbing on her back and holding on to her shoulders as she grabs his legs and stands to her feet. They make it to Darling's place in no time, not running into any more trouble. Don't look for a moment, would you? Luna asks as she feels Robin tuck his face into her shoulder. She bangs loudly on the door a few times before unlocking it. You better be decent, she calls as she steps inside. We have little eyes present. She kicks the door shut behind her as Ember peeks out of it. I am not a baby, Robin protests, but does not move. It's just me for now, Ember says, and Luna deems her sufficiently covered. Okay, you can look now, Luna says to Robin. I'm gonna set you down. He slides gently to the ground, surveying the small place curiously. You brought a kid with you? Ember questions, evaluating him with the same intensity he studies her with. Is he another one of Darling's? Darling's youngest, I think, Luna confirms. I call him Little Darling. She presents grandly. My name is Robin, he corrects. Ember grins. Not here it isn't. And Little Darling needs some medical attention. Luna explains. Some assholes kidnapped him and messed up his ankle. As if something as simple as a twisted ankle would prevent me from escaping. He scoffs dismissively. Luna exchanges a glance with Ember over his head. I need to grab something to wrap it with. Meet me on the couch? Luna suggests. Robin obviously mistakes the directive to be aimed at him and starts walking towards the couch, but Ember snatches him up before he can take more than a few steps. She cradles him in her arms, bridal style. Injured people don't get to walk. I am not a child. Put me down, he demands, squirming in her grasp. Ember just laughs. I've carried Darling for way longer distances than this. I can handle getting you across the living room. He frowns, upset, but allows himself to be placed gently on the plush furniture, blankets tucked around him for comfort and support. Ember sits next to him, placing his leg on her lap, and starts to take off his shoes. Let me know if it hurts, she says. We need to see how bad this is swollen. He nods, no longer fighting against them. Luna comes back and they wrap his ankle, stuffing one of the couch pillows under it to elevate it, and checking over his other injuries. When it seems the amount of attention is overwhelming him, they both leave him to rest on the couch, Luna heading to change into something more comfortable. Not 20 minutes later, he's fallen asleep, and shortly after, Ember opens the door to reveal an anxious Darling. Robin's here, he asks, something like panic coloring his voice. He's here, Ember confirms, letting him in. He's fine, he's sleeping on the couch. Darling brushes past her, darting over to the couch, gently checking him over himself. He calms over the next few minutes, running a hand through the sleeping boy's hair, pressing a gentle kiss to his hairline. Luna and Ember give them space, and eventually, Darling joins them in the kitchen, where they are making tea. Sorry, he apologizes immediately. I just needed to make sure he was okay. We got separated a few hours ago when those guys took him, and I had no idea what happened to him. It's okay, darling, Luna reassures, pressing an untouched mug into his trembling hands. We understand. Thank you so much for looking after him, Darling continues. I don't think there's any monetary value I can ascribe to how much this means to me. How many times do we have to tell you? Ember gently scolds. You don't owe us anything. Taking care of the little Darling was the least we could do. Little Darling? Darling asks, unable to keep the curiosity and amusement from his voice. Oh, yeah. He's a mini version of you, I swear, Luna explains. You should have seen him approach me in the alley. He was the politest little gentleman. I would have called him cutie, but I think he would have protested that as much as your other one protested sunshine. Darling grins. I heard about that. Your little ones are fun to have around. Let them know they're free to visit us whenever they're in Blood. They're my younger brothers, Ember, not my kids. They might as well be, given how I hear you talk about them. Don't think I didn't see you doting on little Darling earlier. Whatever. Darling dismisses, burying his face in his mug of tea, muttering something, and taking a sip to avoid the accusation. Make sure that little Darling doesn't blame himself for anything that happened tonight. Luna cuts in, changing the subject. Darling glances up at her curiously. He asked for my help hiding from the bastards that kidnapped him, and seemed like he took it really hard when they got rough with me. They hit you? Darling asks, his voice deceptively light and calm, as if she can't see the storm brewing on his face. Nothing serious, she dismisses easily. Just don't want him to be upset about something that wasn't his fault. I don't blame him or anything. I was happy to help get him away from those freaks. Right, I'll be sure to talk to him about it. Darling sighs softly, seemingly willing to drop his ire for now. I don't know about you, Ember says with a yawn, but I was about to sleep before Luna brought strays into the flat. Oh, fuck off! As if you weren't delighted at the sight of him. What I was trying to say, Ember continues, glaring at Luna emphatically, is that you can stay the night, if you'd like, darling. Luna nods. Your little one is already sleeping on the couch. You can join him there if you want. Their couch is huge, bought for the exact purpose of being able to fit multiple people. If you're sure, one of these days, you'll act like you like us. Ember teases, and he looks a little bashful at that. It'd be way too much hassle for you to move him now, Luna says. I won't even make you change, since it's just the couch. She grins teasingly. Thank you, he says, and she can tell how the tiredness seeps from his bones, now that the adrenaline is gone, the long hours catching up to him. He trots over to the couch, setting himself carefully around the sleeping boy, tucking his nose into his hair. Robin shifts, curling closer, murmuring sleepily. Luna flicks out the light, giving them some peace, and joins Ember in the bedroom. It takes a few weeks for Robin to visit them. Her offer was genuine, but seeing as the bats are rarely in Bludhaven, she wasn't sure if she'd see them again at all, let alone that quickly. Brier is the one to open the door, calling out to the rest of them as she lets him in. Luna emerges from where she was sorting laundry, coming to the living room to see what the fuss was about. Of everything she could have imagined, it wasn't Robin holding a squirming gray kitten. You have proven yourself to be trustworthy and caring, Robin declares, presenting her with the small creature. He seems a little embarrassed, but carries on steadfast. Father said I could not keep her, because we already have too many animals. And I do not think Nightwing's puppy would get along well with such a delicate animal, he explains. He suggested I give her to you. He pauses, watching for her reaction. Of course, if you do not want her, I understand. He backtracks, seeming to take her stunned look as a sign of rejection. It is a lot of responsibility, and I know you are all very busy, and... Relax, kid. Luna cuts in. I love her. No take-backsies. Very well, then. Thank you, he says, seeming pleased. I named her Delilah. A beautiful name, Brier agrees, reaching out to run her fingers gently through the kitten's soft fur. I brought some supplies with me to care for her, and Nightwing promised to pay for the necessary items to ensure her well-being. I will also be stopping in periodically to track her progress. He stumbles over his words, almost as if he's unsure the declaration will be unappreciated. I already told Darling that any of you are welcome here any time, Luna says, graciously looking past his poor attempt at hiding his lingering concern for them. He really is just like Darling. He glances up at her and then at the floor again, mouth drawn tight like he wants to say something, but is too nervous. Let me section off a corner of our room. That will be safe for her to stay, until we can cat-proof the rest of the place, Brier says, picking up on it as well, and making herself scarce. She takes Delilah gently into her arms and coos at her. The kitten squeaks, and Brier grins, disappearing into the bedroom. Luna glances down at Robin, waiting for him to speak. I want to thank you, he begins, pulling something out of his utility belt. Your assistance was appreciated and invaluable for the short time you were my partner. But, seeing as you no longer have a partner, Delilah aside, I was hoping to provide you with something to arm yourself with in my absence. He holds out what seems to be a simple gold locket for her to take. It should fit discreetly with your uniform. Aren't convinced my stilettos are good enough? She teases gently, inspecting the locket. It seems impractical for your only weapon to be on your feet. This is much easier access, and more subtle. Her eyes catch on what appears to be a small button on the side. She presses it curiously. Instead of the locket opening, like she thought it might do, something pops up out of it. She tugs it, pulling out a thin metal piece with a small handle, like a thumbtack. It's dripping with something she can't identify, but it's clear and has no smell. It's poison, Robin states calmly. Nothing lethal, but a few drops will leave a grown man paralyzed for some time. For some of your more impolite patrons. She snaps the piece back into place and places the locket around her neck. While some might consider it an odd gift, she has dealt with far stranger things on a daily basis to be worried about something like this. Darling mentioned that Robin had a rough childhood, but for someone who resides in Gotham, this feels like a rather tame way of showing his concern. She also feels that it's a compliment, because he trusts her to not be stupid enough to hurt herself with it. I'll take care of it, she promises. And it'll be a constant reminder of the best partner I've ever had. He tuts, ducking his head, but doesn't say anything to rebuke her. Now, let's go find Brier. We're gonna need all the tips we can get for looking after our fuzzy new friend. Chapter 3. Civilian Identity Shenanigans. On some level, Mira is used to seeing familiar faces in their line of work. Other girls that frequent the same areas, repeat clients, and so on. Even Darling's little ones have started to make a regular appearance. But this face was familiar for a different reason. They may not be in Gotham, but in the same way everyone nearby is familiar with the Bats, no one within 1,000 miles of that city can pretend they don't know the Waynes. Mira just isn't sure what Dick Grayson is doing in Bludhaven. She heard a rumor a while back that he lived here, but given the millions of dollars he must have access to regularly, she doesn't understand why he would willingly stay in this shithole of a city, so she doesn't believe it. Still, for whatever reason, he finds himself here. He approaches her on this drizzly night, hair mussed and eyes tired. She's sure she can help with whatever service he'd be interested in, and briefly wonders if he'd be willing to pay more, since he obviously isn't hurting for cash. Why he doesn't go to a nice place with more privacy, she doesn't know, but she isn't in this business to judge. "Hey there!" he says cheerily, stopping a few feet in front of her. "Have you been out long?" It takes her a moment to respond, thrown off by his behavior. Most people are straight to business, desperate to get out from under the light of the street lamps and into the shadows to get off. Maybe he's just into foreplay. "A couple of hours. But I have plenty of energy for you," she responds, putting a flirty lilt into her tone. Grayson just laughs. Huh, he must be used to it. "Well, I brought you some food anyway," he says, reaching into the canvas tote bag slung over his shoulder and pulling out a sandwich from a local shop, handing it over to her. She takes it, confusion taking over her as she glances inside. Maybe this is a really weird way of handing her a wad of cash? Nope, it's a sandwich, as promised, and seems to be ham and Swiss cheese, which is her favorite. She glances up at him warily. Either he knows way more about her than anyone should for just having met the first time, or it was a mighty odd coincidence. "Thanks," she says, trying to keep the cautious hesitance out of her voice. She normally doesn't have to worry about food that much, with how Darling keeps them stocked up, but it could be useful in case he doesn't swing by tonight. She's never going to say no to free food. "Do you need anything else?" he asks, an oddly familiar sense of earnestness in his voice. "You're not hurt or anything, are you?" A part of her wants to feel flattered at his concern, but a larger part of her feels that suspicion grow, and like she needs to defend herself. "I'm doing fine, honey," she begins, keeping her voice mild, even as she interjects a thread of sharpness in her tone. "I know how to handle people in these parts." "I know you can take care of yourself," he reassures, seeming confused by her reaction. His face scrunches a little, blue eyes staring thoughtfully at her, like he could discern what was happening simply by looking. She doesn't appreciate it. Look, I don't know what your deal is, mister, but if you're not here for a session, then you can fuck right off. I don't care how rich or famous you are, I'm not playing along with anything unless you're paying. She snaps, pointing a finger in his face. He freezes in place for a moment, and then some sort of realization passes across his face. He glances down at his clothes before looking back at her. Right, he says, somewhat awkwardly. I just... He seems like he was going to explain before cutting himself off. Sorry, he says quickly, dropping the tote bag at her feet and taking a step back, seeming nervous. I'm sorry for bothering you. He apologizes again. He moves like he's going to leave, but stops himself, opening his mouth. Then he just shuts it, awkwardly, with a small shake of his head, and walks away, leaving her alone on the street corner, even more confused than she was before. When she opens the abandoned bag, she finds a few more sandwiches, a half-completed shopping list, and a pin. She's not sure what exactly just happened, but if he truly was only trying to help, she thinks it's a little too late to regret it. Ember is starting to get concerned. She thinks that maybe it's a little silly for her to be so nervous after not seeing Darling for only a few days, but as a week turns into 2, she thinks it's justified. Some of the others are starting to feel on edge as well, she can tell. They never tend to go more than a week without at least one of them seeing him. He makes a point of checking in with them, and even as they've gotten more self-reliant, more able to afford things without his help, and not worried about making ends meet, he checks in on them for other reasons. He'll stop by to socialize, to make sure no one's hurt, and to see what intel they've dug up. And that's just when he's stopping by their normal spots on the streets. Darling usually spends an afternoon or overnight once or twice a month, just to socialize. And if he's not around, it's not uncommon for one of his little ones to be instead. Maybe that's why Ember gets nervous so fast. When a week has gone by and not even little Darling has stopped by to check in about Delilah, Ember notices the tension rise among the other girls. She almost hesitates to speak her concern out loud, as if saying them to the empty air will be enough to bring them to life. But after another week of tense waiting and anxious horror, she can't keep the wiggling fear in her chest to herself anymore. He's okay, right? She blurts out, as they're all cooking dinner one night. Nearly 20 days since they last saw him. The attempt at light-hearted conversation falls flat as she says what's on their minds. He has to be, Brier says, but it's shallow, like she's trying to convince herself. Luna pets Delilah nervously, and Mira doesn't say anything, from where she stirs the pot on the stove. Ember picks at her nails as the room falls quiet. They'd tell us if something happened, Ember says, but she isn't sure if it's a statement or another question. Of course they would, Mira reassures immediately. We just have to assume no news is good news. I mean, he's a superhero. He's been to space. He's probably just caught up with something. Yeah, if he knew he was going to be gone a while, he would have told us beforehand. But sometimes things just come up. I'm sure he would have warned us if he knew. Brier agrees. It'd be stupid to ask, right? Luna says. Like they have more important things to do than reassure us. Ember wants to say yes, that they shouldn't bother the bats, that if something truly happened to Darling, they'd hear about it before it hits the papers. But an uncomfortable feeling settles in her gut, and she has the sudden urge to avoid the news, just in case. Like the TV providing white noise in the other room is now a pendulum waiting to swing. It wouldn't hurt, she posits gently. I mean, they can't really be mad at us for being concerned. Yeah, Luna agrees. All right then, Brier decides. Let's do it. Mira turns off the stove as they retrieve the comm they keep for emergencies, and they all crowd around the bed as she flicks it on with shaking fingers. Hello? She asks cautiously, fearing they would get no response. Is anyone there? Mira. Red Hood's familiar voice comes in return. He sounds tired. Is that you? Yes, it's us. Everything okay? Yeah, sorry for bothering you, she says, starting to feel a little silly. He's obviously exhausted and probably in the middle of something, but they got this far and she really needs to know. It's about Darling. Is he okay? Silence hums over the line. We just haven't heard from him in a while. Ember speaks up to explain. We wanted to make sure he's all right. Hood takes a deep, shaky breath, and the fear starts to settle back in. It's been a rough couple of days, but he's all right. We had a couple of tough missions and then, well, he's fine. Gonna need some time to heal up, but I'll let him know you were thinking about him. I know he misses you and is sorry he hasn't been able to visit. It's just been... wow. Has it been that long? No wonder you all were worried. He must have missed your normal gossip night. It's all right, Brier reassures, even if that's not entirely true. It's obvious that Red Hood can tell they don't mean it. Sorry for keeping you out of the loop. With everything going on, it just fell by the wayside. Look, I'm sorry, but I need to go. I'll try to see if he's up for talking with you next time he's awake. All right? Thanks, Hood. Mira agrees amicably. Good luck and be safe. Take care of Darling for us. But don't forget to take care of yourself, too. Red Hood huffs out a laugh. I will. Wing always has way more concern about all of us than himself, so he makes sure that I don't overwork. When he can, of course. His voice takes on a slightly amused tone, but it's distracted almost, like he's talking to himself. You girls would take good care of him. Maybe I should send him over there so you all can keep him from doing something so stupid and reckless again. He trails off for a moment, before addressing them once more. Yeah, thanks for checking in. I'll make sure you talk to him soon. Thank you, Mira says again, and the comm goes dead. The girls look around at each other, not exactly feeling reassured. They tuck the comm away, and head back into the kitchen for their dinner. Despite the news, Ember can't help feeling a little better, now that she knows, at least, Darling was on the mend. But what exactly had Darling gotten into? And why wouldn't Red Hood tell them? She thinks about it for a very long time. After everything that happened, Dick decides it's time for them to know who he is. He talks about it with the others first, and lays out his reasoning, his feelings, and his concerns. Jason supports his decision, says something about needing more people in their corner, about the trustworthiness of working girls in his own personal experiences, and offers to fight Bruce if he puts up a fuss about it. It makes Dick laugh, and feel a little less nervous. Tim has no objections, and lays out all the background research he did on each of the girls, stating that he found no criminal ties or connections to something that would come back to haunt them later. He also offers his willingness to clean up virtual messes that get started in case one of them decides to take the news online for a quick buck. Dick would be offended if it wasn't so in character for his stalker of a little brother, and instead smiles fondly and thanks him for the help. Damien agrees to their character, their skill, and their reliability in taking care of Delilah. He's found no evidence of deceit in his various trips to their place in Bludhaven, and has no concern about them knowing his identity in connection to Dick. Luna made for an admirable partner, and accepted my gift for her protection. Given this knowledge, and what she does for a living, I hardly believe she will judge me for how I was raised. Besides, to them, I am your younger brother. There is hardly a worse way to be known. He had teased, and Dick had joyfully messed up his hair at the easy acceptance. Cass had given him permission without any words, before he even opened his mouth to ask. Steph thought they knew already, given how much he hung out with them, and how often he spent the night. She has yet to meet them, and Dick kinda fears the day they do, because he thinks they'll get on just a little too well. Duke says he doesn't mind because he doesn't think it will affect him too much, as he's still relatively new to the family and not yet famous enough for anyone to know who he is. Honestly, he confides in Dick. He'd like to keep it that way. Dick can't say he blames him. Alfred feels like the precursor to the final boss, yet Dick is almost more afraid of his disapproval than Bruce's. At some point, Bruce's disapproval is almost guaranteed, but Alfred just smiles and is glad that he's making friends. It's good to have a relationship with people outside of this kind of life, and much like Bruce had said previously, it's good to have some extra hands taking care of him outside of Gotham. Convincing Bruce himself takes less work than he thought. He thinks that maybe Bruce found out about his intentions to do so before Dick had the chance to bring it up to him. but that seemed to work out in his favor. Bruce is not happy about it, of course, and warns about the potential dangers and how it's not a choice he'll be able to take back. Dick reassures him that it's just the ones he's close with in Bludhaven, not every working girl he's ever worked with, but he's not sure how much that helped. In fact, he doesn't think that Bruce ever agrees with him, but rather realizes he can't stop him from doing so, and begrudgingly relents. He supposes, depending on how it goes, at least one of them will get to say, "I told you so." Dick can only hope it's him. When Darling first comes to see them again after his extended disappearance, he spends the first few minutes smothered in hugs. Seeing Darling in person relieved Brier of the burden she was unaware she was carrying, even though they were able to talk to him over the comm for a few days after initially reaching out. "What happened?" she asked, pulling back from the tight hug and looking him over, as if she could see any potential wounds through his suit. "Are you okay?" Sure, he had promised them over the phone that he was fine, but refused to elaborate until they met again in person, which didn't help the underlying fear that something bigger was going on that he just didn't want them to know about. But seeing him now, alive and well and smiling, voice full of joy, not tense and strained, just made her want to shake him until he told them everything, just so nothing like this ever happened again. "I promise I'm okay," he reassures each one of them. "There was an Arkham breakout," he explains. "An all-hands-on-deck situation, and it took longer than we would have liked to get everything under control again." Brier knows there's more to that story than he's willing to admit. She can only imagine the stress and exhaustion and long hours of spending days, if not weeks, wrestling supervillains back under control again. A selfish part of her wishes he'd just stick to Bludhaven, where even if things aren't better, they can at least help out and keep an eye on him. "And then something happened in my civilian life," he continues. Brier watches him carefully. He doesn't talk about his life outside of the mask very much. "There was concern that if you saw it on the news and then were told about what happened to me, you would put the pieces together." Brier wants to know what kind of civilian life he leads that gets him on the news, but doesn't dare ask. "But I figured you deserved to know," he says, holding out the newspaper from a few days ago. Ember takes it, angling it so they can all see. Printed across the front page, in bold letters, reads, "Wayne Eyre, Dick Grayson, kidnapped." B does his best to keep it on the down low, but no one can resist a good story, he says, and when they all look back up at him, his mask is off. It takes a second for Brier to process, as her head spins at the revelation. Darling, their Darling, who moonlights as Nightwing, fighting crime, trying to clean up the city, and just spent who knows how long helping an Arkham breakout, is Dick fucking Grayson. She might need to sit down. "You were kidnapped?" Luna is borderline screeching. Brier isn't sure if she's mad at the idiots who stole him or at Darling for keeping it from them. Darling looks sheepish. "It wasn't that bad." He tries to defend, but Luna isn't having it. "We're not letting you out of our sight for weeks, darling," she threatens, and he looks properly cowed. Mira giggles, and they all turn to look at her like she's gone mad, as her laughter gets louder. "Oh my god," she manages between fits of laughter. "That's why you were so awkward the other night." Darling flushes red a little in embarrassment, reaching up to run a nervous hand through his hair. "I was so tired I forgot I hadn't suited up yet," he explains, and it just makes Mira laugh harder. Brier remembers the story, now that she thinks about it, and starts to laugh as well. Soon they're all dissolving into laughter, and it's relieving the last bit of stress that was lingering in her system. She takes a moment to revel in the feeling of having Darling back around as her giggles quiet down, and she finally feels like she can relax. "Well, you're definitely not getting out of movie nights now," Ember threatens cheerfully. "We'll come steal you from your big fancy house if need be," she teases. "You have a couple to make up for," Mira agrees. "Starting tonight, I think." Darling starts to put up a protest, stuttering out something about patrol, but Ember and Luna just drag him deeper into their apartment. How he thought he'd be able to escape them after weeks of no visits was beyond her. She settles on the couch as the others bully him into comfier clothing. Mira snagging his personal phone to make a note of his number and adding all of theirs in his contacts. Brier leans back, closing her eyes, and tries not to think about what she knows of Dick Grayson. Mainly the fact that she knows he's a year younger than her. And if that's the case, and he's the oldest, she can't prevent herself from doing the mental math about how much younger the others are. She always had a soft spot for Darling's little ones, but seeing as they're all just teenagers, she really does just want to bundle them up and never let them see the light of day again. It's in her blood to be protective. Mira teases her about being protective of the other working girls, as if Mira, who is older than Brier by a few years, isn't worse than any of them. So, knowing that Darling is only a year older than Luna, and that Red Hood might be about Ember's age, and the others are younger, that's enough to recumulate all the stress she had gotten rid of tonight. Tired already? Mira's teasing voice asks, causing Brier to look up at her. Kids these days, am I right? She teases in return. She can tell that Mira probably understands what she means, knows what she was thinking about, and probably had the same realization for herself already. Mira puts a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll take care of them, she says, and then grins. Even if that means kidnapping Darling ourselves. Brier laughs, standing to her feet. You make an excellent point. She turns to the bedroom, where Darling emerges with Luna and Ember on his heels. He's in a different pair of fluffy novelty pajamas because Ember thinks it's funny to see what's the silliest thing she can get him to wear. So far, she hasn't found something he's turned down. How long will it take your family to get mad at us for keeping you here? Luna is glad to have Darling around in Bludhaven again, even if it seems he hasn't learned anything from his stint away. How are you doing tonight? Darling's voice rings out from the shadows of the alleyway behind her, startling her out of her thoughts. Luna can admit she's only doing so well. The weather is stormy and foggy, and cold in a way that can only be described as gross. She can handle rain and high winds and lightning storms. It wouldn't be Bludhaven without it. But this weather is the downright miserable kind, where you just want to stay home, curled up in bed, watching it through the window. But her work isn't dictated by the weather, and she's honestly not surprised to see Darling out tonight as well. She's not sure there's anything more than brute force that keeps him away. I'm doing all right, I suppose, she starts to say, cutting herself off when she catches sight of him. Are you okay? She questions, concern seeping into her voice as she steps closer. Darling does not look well. I'm fine, he dismisses, as if he isn't curled up in a ball, resting tiredly against the alley wall. Caught a little cold is all. Luna isn't sure if it's the pitiful way he shivers or the fact that he's admitting something is wrong in the first place that concerns her. If Darling is outright telling her that he feels off, it must be really bad. You look like shit, she says bluntly, reaching down and pressing a hand against his forehead. Just as she suspected. He's running hot. Must have a fever then. Did you get into anything weird? He pulls back from her, and she takes the hint to drop her hand. It's just cold, he insists. Wanted to rest a bit before finishing my rounds. Luna stares at him blatantly, like he's an idiot, but he seems too out of it to notice. That's definitely not a good sign, and there's certainly no way in hell she's letting him go back out like this. In this state, she's not sure he can take down an inexperienced mugger. Where's Ember when you need her? Looks like she'll have to wrangle him herself. Wrong answer, she informs him. You're coming back to our place. And if you're lucky, I'll let you sleep on the couch instead of the bed. What? No! He tries to insist. I just need a minute. He trails off into a fit of coughs, which only serves to make her more nervous. All right, darling, on your feet. I can't carry you, so you'll have to help me out. She coaxes him into a standing position, throwing an arm around her shoulder, and all of a sudden, he's less willing to fight back. He leans heavily against her, resting his head against her, and allows himself to be led home. She ushers him into the bedroom to change, which he seems to manage by himself, before coming back out and curling up on their couch. She tucks a pillow under his head, covers him with a blanket, and within minutes, he's asleep. She rolls her eyes, searching through his things for his calm. How he survived this long, she doesn't know. Hello, she speaks into the calm. This is Luna. Is anyone there? Hello, Miss Luna. An older gentleman's voice comes in return, a slight lilt of an accent in his tone. How may I assist you? Luna racks her brain to try and place him. Darling said something about a grandfather, didn't he? You're with Darling, aren't you? She glances over at the couch, where he sleeps soundly, as the man gives a quiet confirmation. He's sick. He was trying to patrol, but I've brought him home. We'll take care of him. But I don't want anyone to get concerned, not knowing where he went. The man sighs. That sounds like him, I'm afraid. If you can actually get him to take some time for himself, it would be greatly appreciated. When we found out he had the flu, he left almost immediately. Said he didn't want to be hovered over. Luna laughs. I'm afraid he won't escape that here. Good. He could certainly do with a little attention. Thank you for your help, Miss Luna. We certainly do appreciate your assistance in the matter. I will be sure to inform the others. Though, I must warn you, once they do find out, I'm afraid you won't have an empty house for long. The more the merrier, she reassures. It's not as if we aren't used to Darling's little ones hanging around anyway. Robin appears first. Luna expects the knock at the door, and when she opens it to reveal little Darling, she doesn't find herself very surprised. Little Darling is quick, witty, and very close with Darling, so it makes sense that he'd make it here first, if not a little wet around the edges. He steps inside and immediately goes in search of Delilah, as if he can fool her into thinking this is a normal visit. He returns with her in gloveless hands, so as not to get her wet. And without his mask, he walks over to where Darling sleeps and settles Delilah carefully on top of him. The kitten, still sleepy from the nap she was disturbed from, curls up on Darling's chest and falls back asleep. Damie? Darling mumbles, the slight weight enough to wake him. You must rest, little Darling informs. And now that Delilah is sleeping with you, you are forbidden from getting up. Darling blinks down at the small gray puddle laying atop him. With bleary blue eyes, he reaches up and pets her gently, causing her to purr, and he smiles softly. Why is that? He glances up at little Darling to ask. It is a criminal offense to move a sleeping cat, little Darling informs seriously, which causes Darling to laugh. His laughter devolves into a coughing fit, and when it's over, he sinks back into the couch, exhausted. I'll be okay, little D, Darling reassures as his eyes fall shut again. Little Darling turns to look at her, and while his face remains fearless, Luna can read the panic in his eyes. He will be all right, he says, but it comes off with a questioning lilt. If he was raised in such a traumatic way as Luna thinks, from Darling's sparse descriptions, she figures even an illness like the flu must be scary for him. He'll be fine with just a little rest. She reassures as well, and just hopes that she isn't lying. She's not used to being the adult of the household, despite being an adult herself. She hadn't realized how much she relied on Brier and Mira until she was suddenly thrown into the role herself. She doesn't like it. He seems to calm a little, taking her words to heart, but lingers like he isn't sure what to do next. His fingers twitch like he wants to reach out and touch, to straighten the blanket, or remove the unruly strands of hair out of his face. But he hesitates, like touching something will ruin it. Like it's not real to begin with, watching someone you know to be strong slowly slipping through your fingers. With how nervous the whole situation makes her, just weeks after his kidnapping and identity reveal, she can only imagine how little Darling is doing. I'm gonna see if we have some soup, Luna says, causing his gaze to shift over to her. It'll be good for him to eat something when he wakes up again. You can stay with him, she suggests, because he looks like he wants someone to tell him what to do. I need someone to look after him while I cook. He nods and turns back to Darling with a task at hand. She disappears into the kitchen to look through their cabinets and hopes they still have some chicken noodle soup. It's not too much longer before the others arrive, the knock on the door drawing her away from the stove. When she glances in the living room on her way over, she notes how little Darling has settled himself on the couch, removing the pillow and allowing Darling to rest his head on his legs instead. He runs a hand through Darling's hair soothingly, but has tensed at the sound of the door, like he might get caught doing something he's not supposed to. Luna hurries to answer the door, so he doesn't realize she noticed. Red Hood and Red Robin are on the other side, looking as nervous as ever. How is he? Red Hood questions, as he removes his helmet and mask. Sunshine keeps his on, but looks over at her just as anxiously. It's just a flu, I think, she reassures. He's out trying to catch pneumonia in this weather. The idiot. Hood grumbles upset. He heads towards the living room, Sunshine on his heels. You got him under control? He questions Little Darling. He tuts. He has not been awake enough to put up a fight. Serves him right. Sunshine mutters petulantly. I can't believe B let him leave. Hood huffs out a laugh. I don't think B lets Wing do much of anything. But if he thinks he can tough it out by himself by leaving the manor, he's got another thing coming. All he's doing is missing out on Alfie's soup. Sunshine concurs. I hope canned soup is okay then. Luna cuts in, drawing their attention to the steaming bowl she has in her hands. It's all we have. It'll be perfect, Hood promises. He pauses for a moment, looking at the others. Do we even know the last time he ate? Little Darling takes a moment to think. Given his state, this morning at the latest, he's probably been feeling unwell for a few days now. Slow and steady, then. Hood concurs, and takes the soup from Luna. Hey, Wing, are you alive in there? Little Darling nudges Darling, blue eyes fluttering open, at the persistent contact. What? He says, voice rough with a sore throat. Sit up, Richard. Little Darling prompts. You need sustenance. Delilah stretches and hops down onto the floor, allowing Sunshine and Little Darling to help him into a more upright position. Darling blinks blearily at all of them, jaw cracking with a yawn. Yeah, I know you're tired, Hood consoles. But just a little bit, and then you can sleep again. Jay? Yeah, Wing, it's me. I'm sorry, Darling says, tears forming in his eyes. Hood sounds confused. For what? I couldn't save you. Darling's hoarse voice whispers out, sounding broken. Hood swears, and Sunshine snatches the bowl of soup out of his hands before it can be dropped on the carpet. Richard? Little Darling's voice is insistent, demanding to be heard. Darling turns to look at him. He presses himself against Darling's side and takes one of his hands, squeezing it gently. That was a nightmare. He clarifies firmly. You are awake now. You are sick and need to eat. Darling blinks down at him, and it's like watching him come back to himself. That was fake? He asks, a desperate tone in his question, like he needs more than anything for it to be true. I'm fine, Dickie Bird, Hood reassures, and Darling stares at him, relieved. Maybe it's a little dirty, but I'll be even better if you eat this soup. He continues, and Darling just nods. He takes the offered bowl with shaky hands. Sunshine letting go, but hovering nearby in case he drops it. Luna steps away as he begins to eat, trying not to feel like she's intruding. She walks into their bedroom to find Ember, who must have snuck in sometime during all the chaos. Everything okay? Ember asks upon seeing her. Darling's sick, Luna informs, and Ember makes a sympathetic noise in response. A little while later, when the living room has quieted down, Luna and Ember venture out to check on them. Darling is asleep again, but looks better, and Luna feels reassured. How long do you think he'll take to get better? Little Darling is asking. Give him a few days, and he'll be back to his normal, annoying self. Hood reassures. He's dramatic, but he's not like Timberlina over there. Hood blinks, and then looks over at Sunshine, as if he's seeing him for the first time. Should you even be here? What's that supposed to mean? Sunshine bristles. I have every right to visit him as you do. You don't get sole ownership of worrying about our older brother. You don't have a spleen, dumbass. Hood deadpans. Little Darling tuts. Hypocritical of you to lecture Richard about self-care when you didn't even come here wearing a mask, Drake. If you guys need to go, we've got it covered here. Ember cuts in. The others will be back in a few hours, so Darling can stay here, no problem. It wouldn't do for Sunshine to get sick as well, Luna agrees. Yeah, Sunshine. Hood teases. Sunshine huffs. Why doesn't he get a nickname? He protests, obviously embarrassed about being called as such in front of the others. Hood doesn't need one, Ember explains. It's obvious that he doesn't want to leave, even if it would be better for him. But she doesn't say she blames him. It sucks to be the only one excluded, but she also thinks he wouldn't be as embarrassed if he realized it wasn't just them teasing him about their first meeting. The nicknames are a code of sorts, as well as a sign of respect. Darling got his because he established himself as an ally to us girls. Someone we can trust. Yours follows because you're associated with him. We trust you because he trusts you, and we trust him. But Hood established himself as an ally by himself. Red Hood is enough of an indication of his reputation as is. He doesn't need the association with Darling. That seems unfair. Sunshine protests. You also know him through Nightwing. He should have one. They don't have to give me one if they don't want to. Don't be a jerk. Hood warns. Luna doesn't miss the slight downtrodden nature of his voice. Something like disappointment lingering in his eyes. She almost, dare she say it, thinks he feels left out. Well, if you insist, Ember says, obviously catching the same thing Luna did. I think Starlight would work. Now look what you've done, Starlight says, reaching over and pulling Sunshine in a headlock, scrubbing at his hair. There's a fond undertone in his voice, and Luna smiles as Sunshine shrieks and squirms. Quit that, Starlight teases as he continues to torture his brother. You're gonna wake Wing. Sunshine finally manages to break free, fixing his mussed hair. Luna thinks she can see his death glare, even through the domino mask. The ladies have a point, Starlight says more seriously. You should get the demon brat out of here. It's a school night. Little Darling starts to protest, but Starlight cuts him off. Nope, you need to go to bed. And Sunshine needs to get away from this sickness before his non-existent immune system gives out. Besides, we don't need to be crowding their place. Why do you get to stay? Because I'm the only one of us who is big enough to drag Dickhead to his apartment in the morning. Little Darling stares at him contemplatively. Back to the manor, and you have a deal. He bargains. Back to his apartment, and you can visit again after school. He glances over at Sunshine and then back again. And Timmers can only visit if he wears a mask next time. Deal. Little Darling agrees. Pleasure doing business with you, Starlight says amicably. Now get out of here. Little Darling stands, but doesn't move, hovering like the whole place will go crashing down if he goes. Come on, Little D, Sunshine says, voice soft, given his complaining just moments ago. Even if Hood's incompetent, you know Luna and Ember will take good care of him. Starlight lets out an indignant noise of protest that gets ignored. Little Darling allows himself to be let out of the door. And when Luna returns, Starlight has sagged back against the couch. If he relaxes any further, she thinks he might fall apart. It's only now that the others have left that she realizes how much of a show he was putting on to keep things together. I promise it's really okay if you want to go too, Luna says gently, not wanting to chase him out, but wanting to give him the option to escape if needed. Starlight shakes his head. I want to be here. He stares at Darling's sleeping form. I just wish he'd be less of an idiot. Ember smiles. That makes two of us. Thunder crashes outside, and lightning flashes in the window. Darling shifts in his sleep, brows furrowed slightly, like the weather bothers him. Starlight also tenses at the noise, glaring at the storm through the window. Fucking weather. Starlight mutters, reaching over and running a soothing hand across Darling's back. You gonna be alright? Ember questions. I'll be fine. Neither of us like storms, is all. Starlight reassures. But we'll be alright if we stick together. Luna decides to leave them to it. The others will be back in a few hours, she reiterates. I'll let them know to expect you, but try not to let them bother your sleep. Thanks, Starlight says, and Luna follows Ember to the bedroom. A little while later, after Luna has done her nighttime routine and is prepared to fall asleep herself, she goes to check on them one last time. The storm has quieted now, further away, but brief flashes of lightning still illuminate the room every once in a while. It's enough for her to catch a glimpse of the figures on the couch. Darling is still stretched out on the couch, lying on his back, but Starlight has made himself comfortable on top of him, tucking his head under his chin. The blanket has half fallen off of them, but they look like they're actually sleeping. So she doesn't try to fix it. Knowing how lightly Darling normally sleeps, and how reactive he can be when unexpectedly awoken, she doesn't dare disturb their peace. She'll check in on them in the morning. Darling approaches her during one of their movie nights just a few months later. He follows her into the kitchen under the thinly veiled guise of helping her with the popcorn, but making no move to actually help when they get there. Instead, he shifts his weight nervously, like he wants to say something but is too afraid to. "All right," Brier says over the sound of the microwave. "What's wrong? You look like I'm gonna bite you. You know I only do that if asked." That startles a laugh out of him, and seems to put him at ease. "I need a favor. You know how there's a Wayne Gala every year? I was wondering if one of you could go with me. I was just going to go by myself, but Jay doesn't really want me to, and I can't think of anyone else I can take without causing a controversy. But if you guys really don't want to, it's fine," he reassures. Jay just thought I should ask. Brier supposes he'd like to take along that red-headed friend of his, but that'd probably be the controversy. Why doesn't Starlight want you to go by yourself? Aren't other members of your family going to be there? If it's something that Starlight is worried about, to the point that he actually bugged Darling enough for him to ask them about it, it must be pretty serious. It's not like she's against going to a gala. That's the type of stuff out of Disney movies and every girl's wildest dreams. But she has a sneaking suspicion there's more to it than he's letting on. Darling deflates. "There's this girl, she's been pretty insistent. Jay thinks that if I show up with a date, she'll leave me alone." There's a certain tension in his shoulders, like just thinking about talking about it is putting him on edge. She doesn't like it. "But it's not that big of a deal. I can handle it." He tries to placate, as if she can't see the look in his eyes. A stubborn despair. She thinks that maybe he's been handling things like this for way too long. And there's nothing she hates more than someone who can't take no for an answer. "I'd love to go with you," she agrees easily, and his head whips up to stare at her, like she's given him the world. She sees the way he relaxes, like he's immediately relieved she agreed, but doing his best not to pressure her into anything. "The only problem now," she grins at him, mischievously, snatching the bowl of popcorn and heading back towards the living room, where the others were waiting for them, "is that the others are gonna be jealous." There's some playful bickering, but Brier calls dibs because he brought it up to her specifically. In the end, Darling promises that they can take turns, and he'll take all of them to one of these events. Brier ends up dress shopping with Darling's sisters, because Steph insists she wants a reason to go crazy with Bruce Wayne's credit card. And, well, it's not like Brier really keeps anything fitting for a formal event in her wardrobe. She ends up relishing the help because she's used to picking out outfits with bright and flashy colors to attract attention on the streets, but the last thing she wants to do at an event like this is stand out. "What about this?" Steph holds up a long dress that's a deep emerald green. Brier and Cass eye it consideringly, but Cass shakes her head. "Needs to match," she says. "The manor has every flavor of tie and pocket square imaginable. I'm sure Dick can find something to match no matter what we choose." Steph protests, but Cass just shakes her head. Brier lingers on a cute black dress, but doesn't draw attention to it. Black seems a little drab for an event like this. She wants to be beautiful, like a princess, not like she's attending a funeral. After a while longer of searching, Cass comes over to them, a rich, deep blue dress in hand. She grins, a mischievous look in her eyes. Nightwing blue. Steph bursts into laughter, and Brier grins at Cass's knowing look. "He's gonna be so embarrassed," Steph says gleefully, looking it over. "Do you like it?" she asks Brier after a moment. "Like, it'd be funny, but we want to put you in something you actually like." It's an elegant, off-the-shoulder dress, with a tight bodice and a tulle skirt, gradienting from a mid-tone to a dark blue. There are rhinestones decorating the dress, sparkling like the night sky, in the bright light of the store. She glances up at Steph and Cass. It's perfect. They end up getting the black dress she was looking at earlier, as well as a few other things, because Cass snatched it on the way over to the checkout, without Brier noticing. She feels loved and appreciated in a way she hardly feels outside of the other Bludhaven girls, and makes a point to not ruin her makeup by crying in the bathroom. The easy confidence she had gathered while out with them starts to falter when the night of the gala actually arrives, but is waylaid for a moment when she catches a glance of herself in the mirror. She stares at herself, the whole thing feeling a little surreal as she does a quick spin, watching the way the dress moves. It's been a while since she's been valued for what she brings to the table as a person, and not just a means to an end with her body. In this case, she'll gladly use her skills to scare off a handsy bitch. How anyone could be rude to their darling, she'll never know. "You look great!" Steph cheers, walking into the room, jewelry in hand. "Me and Cass aren't going tonight, so I figured you could use some of my jewelry to complete the look." "You look great!" she offers, holding out an elegant, chunky diamond necklace and a pair of matching earrings. "Are you sure?" Brier asks. If these are real, and given the Wayne's money, she's sure they are, they're probably the most expensive thing she's ever touched. Steph shrugs carelessly, pressing them into her hands more insistently. "I'm not using them, and silver's never been my color much anyway. Might as well be put to use by someone who can actually pull them off." "Thank you," Brier says sincerely. All she's missing is a crown, and she'll be a princess for real. "Of course," Steph agrees easily. "Now let's show you off. We have to ask Dick what he thinks of your dress." She grins, leading Brier out of the room. Down in the foyer, the others are starting to gather. Alfred is helping straighten out everyone's attire. Darling is there with little Darling and Starlight. Starlight's not going with them tonight either. He's legally dead, and boy, hadn't that been a conversation when he'd explained that to them. But he's around to see everyone off before heading on patrol. Much like Steph and Cass. They're still waiting on Sunshine, and, of course, Mr. Wayne himself. Brier isn't sure who she's more nervous about, Alfred or Bruce Wayne. She hates to stereotype, but she was nervous about interacting with Darling's grandfather figure, because older people tend to be less receptive of her occupation. He was kind, but distant, when he greeted her at the door earlier, but Steph and Cass swept her away fairly quickly. She supposes now would be the time to ask him to make any disapproving remarks, if he had any. Instead, she is pleasantly surprised by his genuine compliment. "Miss Brier," Alfred says, drawing the attention towards her. "You look absolutely wonderful." "Thank you," she says shyly, and Darling reaches out a hand to pull her closer. "You look beautiful," Darling praises earnestly, and she bumps him in embarrassed annoyance. "You're just mad you can't get a girl like that without bribing her," Starlight teases, and Darling rolls his eyes, but it makes her smile, relaxing at the familiar playful jabs. "Don't you think we did a good job with the dress, Dick?" Darling looks back at her, confused. "I said so, didn't I?" Cass tugs on the tool. "Nightwing blue," she says in that same mischievous tone. And they all laugh as Darling blushes. "You guys didn't have to— Why did you—" He tries to stutter out, but he can't seem to form the thought. "What?" Starlight teases. "Can't handle seeing a girl in your own colors?" "I'll have you know," Brier joins in, enjoying the way Darling's face flushes pink, "that any of us girls in Darling's harem would love to be dressed in Nightwing blue." "Harem?" he squeaks. "You guys aren't my— How could you say that? There are little ears present." Little Darling rolls his eyes. "Your closest friends outside of this family are sex workers, whom we all interact with regularly. You can't possibly expect me to be upset by the thought of a harem." He deadpans. "No one is allowed to have a harem until they're at least 30. A deeper voice cuts in, and they all turn to see Bruce Wayne descending the stairs towards them, Sunshine on his heels. Brier's anxiety spikes, and Darling squeezes her hand reassuringly. "Too late for that, B," Starlight says. "The girls in Blud have already claimed him." Bruce's gaze swivels over to her, and he just smiles. "Oh, they're all right. I need all the extra help I can get looking after him," he adds, glancing at Darling. Darling just rolls his eyes, but there's a fond smile on his face. "My friends are for more than just keeping me in line, Dad," he protests with a whine. But it's mostly just for show. "Yes," Bruce agrees, pulling Darling into a hug and pressing a quick kiss to the top of his head. "They're also for keeping handsy young ladies away from you." He turns to look at Brier again and holds out a hand for her to shake. "Thank you for that, by the way," he says sincerely. Brier shakes the offered hand and finds herself less nervous about interacting with him, even as Darling whips around to look at Starlight, betrayed. "You told him about that?" "Obviously, dickhead." Starlight huffs. "You certainly didn't seem like you were going to do anything. So, someone had to." I offered to stab her, but Todd rejected that idea. Little Darling says, sounding a little put off. Huh. She kind of sees why Luna keeps lobbying for them to call him Nightshade instead. Small and unassuming, but deadly. She thinks she liked him for a reason. You shouldn't have anything to stab anyone with, in the first place, Bruce says, looking over at Little Darling. Of course, Father. Now that everyone is here, we should be going, Alfred cuts in. We're already going to be late as it is. Starlight snags her arm, pulling her to the side, as Alfred ushers the others out of the door. I just wanted to warn you, Starlight says, a hint of nerves in his eyes. Our gala personas can be pretty different than what you're used to. Dick tends to be overly polite and overly tolerant, which is kind of how we got into this mess in the first place. Try not to let it get to you, and use your gut when it comes to taking a break. Sometimes he can get so caught up in everything that he doesn't crash until later. He runs a hand through his hair, tense and stressed. Take care of him, would you? She softens, placing a hand on his shoulder and squeezing it. I've got him. Don't worry about me. Starlight relaxes. I know. I trust you. It's everyone else I'm worried about. Most of the people at events like these are high society snobs, too caught up in their own self-inflated importance to realize they don't matter. Alfred cuts in, drawing their attention towards him. She hadn't even heard him come back in. Alfred, Starlight says with a startled laugh. The point is, my dear, he says, reaching out to straighten one of her earrings, that you shouldn't listen to anything they say. He sighs, sounding resigned. They will say some awful things, I'm afraid. She just grins at him. I've heard worse, I'm sure. No lady as fine as yourself should hear anything close to the foul things that come out of their mouths, but I am confident you will be just fine. He agrees, and then offers her his arm. Shall we go? She takes it gladly. See you later, Starlight. Try not to get into any trouble. He grins. If I do, I'm blaming you, she says in return, and he just laughs. She lets Alfred lead her to the car, and quickly latches onto Darling instead. Persistent bitch or not, she isn't comfortable straying from him tonight. God only knows what to expect in a place like this. They pull up to the venue, and Brier tucks herself against his side, trying not to be blinded by all the flashing lights. Darling graciously answers all the questions about who she is and what she's doing tonight, so she just focuses on standing there and looking pretty. She's used to that, at least. When they get inside the building, things calm down a bit, but they are still immediately swept up into a conversation. She feels a little like a doll on display, but overall, thinks that her presence is well received. In fact, she dares to hope that some of the guests even like her, with how they coo over her dress and talk about what a couple they make. It only takes an hour or so of strategically moving around the room before they can't avoid the main reason she's here. She feels the way Darling tenses, glancing up to see a look of resignation flash across his face, gone as quickly as it came. It feels a little like sobering up, drawing her out of the buzz of the opulence of the event. She was here to protect one of her own, and she'll be damned if she loses focus now. Darling steers them to the side so they're not in the middle of the room, in an attempt at privacy, and to avoid causing a scene. Brier isn't sure how much it'll help. Brier, this is Eliza, Darling says amicably, and if she didn't know better, she might even think he was happy to see her. Eliza does not look happy to see her, perched on his arm, and she makes note to be extra friendly, just to rub it in her face. It's a pleasure to meet you, Brier greets. You as well, Eliza says in a way that makes it clear she is not telling the truth. Have you known Dick long? Of course, we go back years, Brier says. That's not entirely a lie. 2 years counts as years, so it's close enough. Brier's smile tightens. I can't think of why he hadn't mentioned you before. We like to keep our personal life separate. You know how hard it is to keep things hidden from the press. Well then, she grins, sharp and malicious. You wouldn't mind if he has a dance with me? She asks, reaching out and sliding her hand across his chest, grabbing onto Darling's tie, like she might try to drag him away by it. For the sake of keeping the attention of the press off you, you wouldn't mind, would you, Dick? Eliza? Darling rebukes kindly. leaning back as subtly as he can, trying to get her to drop her hold on the fabric. I came here with Brier tonight. I owe my dance to her. I guess I'll just have to go see what your little brother thinks then. Eliza drops the tie, glancing down at her nails and then back up at Dick, like she knows that threat will make him comply with her demands. Brier's blood boils as she watches Darling's eyes go blank, with a sense of helplessness, feeling like he has no choice. She can tell how much he doesn't like Eliza, how the tension and dread and apprehension have been growing since they stepped into the building, only to increase tenfold as the conversation began. But she also knows that he's a caring and loving older brother who would gladly put himself in the line of fire if that meant sparing his siblings. She watches him resign himself to his fate, and can't let it stand. Darling would never let anyone treat her like this, but seems to think it's necessary for himself. Perhaps this is what Starlight meant by polite and overly tolerant. She has to nip this in the bud for both Darling and Sunshine. She's not letting this manipulative wench bother anyone any longer. I don't know what your problem is, she says, stepping between them and pushing Eliza back. But stay the hell away from my man and his family. You can't talk to me like that, Eliza insists. I can talk to you however I please, Brier threatens lowly. And if you ever talk to any of the Waynes ever again, I'm going to make you regret it. What are you going to do? I bet you're just some gold-digging broke bitch. I have power you can only dream of. Now, leave this building and never come back. Eliza just scoffs. Yeah, right. Brier smiles and steps away, plucking the glass of red wine out of Eliza's hand and dumping it on her own dress. It's a shame to ruin such a pretty dress, but if it's what it takes to get this girl gone for good, it's a worthwhile sacrifice. Brier drops the wine glass and stumbles back a few steps dramatically, making sure to draw as much attention to herself as possible. You ruined my dress! She exclaims loudly, pointing at Eliza and making herself cry. She collapses into Darling, who catches her and supports her, as she continues to dramatically sob. Everyone turns to look at them as Brier speaks again. What did I do to make you hate me? She practically wails. I didn't do anything, Eliza says harshly before realizing everyone was looking their way. I didn't, she insists. She did it herself. We were just trying to have a nice conversation, Darling says, catching on to her plan. You didn't have to be so uncivilized. The crowd murmurs in agreement. She's been interested in him for a while. What a petty thing to do in a fit of jealousy. That girl was so nice. What a shame. I think you should leave, Bruce Wayne says, as the rest of the family draws closer. I don't think you were even given an invitation to come tonight, were you? I'm allowed to be here, Eliza stammers. You can't do this to me. I'm on your way out of the door, I'm sure. Bruce agrees calmly. He turns to the security team member, who has grabbed Eliza's arm. Please assure she doesn't return. Of course, Mr. Wayne, he reassures, leading Eliza towards the exit, even as she screeches in protest. Sorry about all the fuss, Bruce calls to the crowd warmly. He leads Brier and Darling out of the room and into one of the private bathrooms, before turning to the two of them. Sunshine and little Darling join them shortly after. Is everyone okay? Bruce questions, eyeing her wet face and running makeup. Oh, I'm fine, Brier dismisses easily, turning to the mirror to look herself over. Darling hands her his pocket square, and she wipes at the makeup on her face. She would just not leave, so I had to make a big deal about everything. Brier glances down at the stain, with a bit of a frown. Shame about the dress, though. I really liked this one. Brier, Bruce says seriously, catching her eye in the mirror. I'd buy you 1,000,000 dresses, for my son's safety. She grins. Now I know where you get it, she teases, nudging Darling. Darling laughs, but she thinks he's probably more shaken up about everything than anyone else. Is everyone else all right? She turns to face Sunshine and little Darling, who seem just fine. She was threatening to go after Sunshine next if Darling turned her down. Me? Sunshine squeaks in obvious surprise as little Darling growls out, Wench. Bruce sighs. We'll keep an extra sharp eye for her then. She seems like she won't be so easily deterred. Maybe some social ostracism will be good for her then. Brier hums. First Richard, then Drake. Father, you should have let me stab her like Todd suggested. Don't tell anyone, but I'm considering it. At least she's gone now, Darling says, seeming like himself again. You should get Brier back to the manor. Sunshine offers. We can finish up here. Besides, maybe Alfie can do something for her dress. He's right. Bruce agrees. You've had a wild enough night. Get some rest, both of you. They sneak out the back exit to avoid the fuss, waiting in the chilly evening air for Alfred to come pick them up. She takes a moment to soak in the peacefulness of the night, basking in the moonlight. She glances over at Darling, trying to figure out how he's feeling. He also seems to be doing better now that he's out of the stiffness of the ballroom, and she feels relieved. You okay? She asks anyway. Darling's not always the best at self-care, constantly worried about everyone else. He turns to look at her, and she can see the gratitude shining in his eyes. Thank you, he says earnestly. I don't think I realized how much that was bothering me until she was gone. Hopefully, she'll be gone for good now. If not, you'll always have one of us to guard your back. Luna, at the very least, is always ready to slap someone for their insolence. Darling laughs. I guess that's why she and Damien get along so well. Brier grins. Probably. There's a moment of silence before she speaks up. You know, there is one thing we never got to do. Darling looks at her curiously. What's that? You still owe me a dance. Darling smiles, holding out his hand for her to take. My lady, he says with a small bow. May I have this dance? She grins and puts her hand in his, letting him pull her into a more open area. And so, with her mission accomplished, away from prying eyes, and despite her wine-stained dress, they dance in the light of the rising moon. Overall, she'd call the night a smashing success. Notes. There's a Bird in the Alleyway takes place between chapters 1 and 2. Chapter 2 features the working girls, helping Nightwing out and meeting other members of the Bat Fam. Hoping to post it sometime later this week. Finally, this monster of a fic comes to an end. This got way longer and way more out of hand than I expected. Hope you liked it. Update, it's gonna get even longer, and even more out of hand. Chapter 3 coming soon. If you enjoyed this story, the link to the fic is in the description below. Give me suggestions if you have any. I'm so down to take suggestions. Fun fact, originally, this fic was going to be cut up into 3 different episodes. However, I looked at that and went, or I can just start editing it early and have it be like an hour and a half long. It might be longer than an hour and a half. If you are listening to this right now, you know whether or not it's more or less than an hour and a half long. I love that it's like, he snarls, and then I'm like, she's my friend, damn it! Oh, I love him. He's my silly little guy. He's my scrungly scrimblow. My baby girl. I'm so sorry for my inability to do accents. Again, every time I attempt an accent, I have to apologize for it. Luna doesn't miss the slight downtrodden... That's adorable.